All right, it's 9 o'clock. Are we on? We will call to order the March 15th regular meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Brown, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Sally Barrow, Bear Creek Road. I'm part of the Rush Creek opt-out. The 2-meeting Planning Commission opt-out workshop was just completed last Thursday. We have been waiting for years for the opportunity to make our case to the Commission. The goal of the workshop was to discuss an opt-out ordinance that would finalize our opt-out and act as a template for the current opt-outs and the ones to follow. One of the greatest fears of most people is public speaking, even under the most friendly circumstances. Many of the supporters of our opt-out and other interested persons just don't have the confidence to participate in the public comment portion of these meetings. The audience atmosphere is often hostile and sometimes aggressive. The cannabis industry community has no shortage of articulate speakers. They pack every meeting and their 3-minute comments can really add up. These meetings to finally discuss the rights of our residents to protect our own investments and regain control of our neighborhoods turned into more discussion of how the cannabis cultivators can protect their investments and profit from it and expand their operations within the opt-out areas. Our original urgency ordinance, approved unanimously 3 times by the Board of Supervisors, includes language allowing for no new permits and no transfers of current licenses. After the overwhelming cannabis input at the workshop, the Commission suggested allowing grandfathered permits to transfer. They thought that would be fair to protect the cultivators' investment and even considered giving them the opportunity to get additional licenses for certain other cannabis activities within the opt-out zones. I will ask the question I have asked many times before. Why is the cannabis community given such preference? Why, even in that setting, was it only the cultivators' investments that were discussed? Why is the investment of my whole life and the lives of my neighbors held in such contempt? Where is the concern for the rest of us? The cultivators' entire investment has been providing potential profit for them all during their period of operation. Their neighbors, long before the arrival of the licensed growers, have been building hoped-for equity in their properties. They find this equity greatly diminished by the presence of an industrial cannabis site in their area. The no transfer clause was an attempt to return our neighborhoods to their historically residential use. I'm asking the board to consider, when hearing all of the various cannabis issues, the voices of the vast majority of citizens in Trinity County that do not cultivate legal cannabis. Please remember us when you are making decisions that will affect the quality of our lives. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Anne-Marie Swanstrom, and I'm the superintendent for Mountain Valley Unified. I was here in November, asking for advocacy from all of you regarding the immunizations in terms of the COVID. And now there is a letter that is being sent, hopefully, to Senator Pan regarding opposition to mandating these COVID immunizations.
I think that that would be public comment that's better fitted for when we go into our consent calendar. You can comment on it.
Oh.
It's on the agenda, so that
Okay.
now would be the time you'll have an opportunity when we go into
Okay.
consent.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Do we have any other public comment for items that are not appearing on the agenda?
Good morning, my name is Jim Morey. I'm with Junction City. I'm also a Trinity Unified School District trustee, District 2. I was going to piggyback along with her comment in advocation of that immunization, so I'll wait also for that consent part. But I also would like to talk a little bit about something we talked about last night at our board meeting here in town, and that was the emergency declaration that is in effect for fentanyl. And how it's affecting our kids and what we can do to help educate our kids and our communities about the dangers of fentanyl. And so I'm asking you guys as a board to consider what we can do publicly for our communities to make sure that the word's getting out on the dangers of fentanyl, and because there's no demographic line. It's affecting all kids, all neighborhoods, and all walks of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any others in the room? And do we have any public comment on Zoom?
Do not see any turn.
Okay, with that, we'll close public comment period and move on to presentations. Item 1.1, receive an update from U.S. Forest Service representative regarding matters of interest in Trinity County. No fiscal impact.
Good morning. So nice to be here live and in person. And gosh, just great to see everyone in the same room at the same time. I wanted to start off, there's a lot going on with Shasta Trinity National Forest and the Forest Service in general. So I wanted to start with a few different talking points. The first one being one ranger. As many of you know, Chris Losi is no longer with the Forest Service, which left an opening for the district ranger in Hay Fork on the South Fork Management Unit. At this point in time, we're trying a new leadership structure for the west side, and having one ranger for the TRMU and the South Fork manage both units, with a deputy being brought on to help meet those needs, because it's at like 1.2 million acres. It's a lot of ground and a big responsibility. The thought is to have this new structure will help us have a consistent vision, help us continue to emphasize community involvement. It will help us maintain and get alignment with the chief's 10-year plan for addressing the wildfire crisis. It'll give us consistency during a time of organizational change. We will be bringing on, or attempting to bring on, a number of new employees. And so having that consistency across the west side and what we're trying to do and what our priorities are, we felt that was really important. Again, it's a trial basis. We've reached out and talked with some community members. We've talked with some of our long-term employees, and they thought that this may be a better way for us to be structured, to be more effective, and to get more done on the ground ultimately, which is our goal. Let's see. Some of those goals also will include, our planning efforts and the way that we go about doing things. So having larger scale planning efforts that include more acres and cover more resource concerns is one strategy, and standing up 2 planning teams on the west side will be really key to getting that done. Okay, so Neva updates. As many of you know, we've been working on the pilot plantation project for a number of years, and I'm happy to say we expect that to be signed and done, signed in early June. That'll end the NEPA piece of the puzzle. And then we've been working on getting into the field and plowing our way out there to do the groundwork that needs to be done with laying out units and being ready to get that offered this fiscal year. For us, that means then by September 30th. August Phase 2 is part of taking the August complex and making it, turning it into a fuel break, from fire to fuel break kind of a thing. That NEPA is expected to be signed in June as well. That's also on the South Fork Management Unit. And McFarland, we're expecting, that's the McFarland fire restoration effort. We're expecting a final signature on that document in late May. Hiring updates. We have filled, as you know, you probably know, both of our archaeologists had left the agency and transferred to other jobs. We filled both of those positions with details, so I'm happy to say that that really helped our planning efforts keep moving along. We have successfully utilized the Society of American Foresters as a hiring event and added a forester to the west side. So that one is a done deal, and he'll start at the end of May, so we're excited about that. We also are working through a number of hiring events, and I brought you a flyer. The one that's open right now is for forestry technicians, and we're looking to really add to our numbers. I printed out 5 of these. I'm just going to set them right over here. And that is a national hiring event. So not only is the Shasta Trinity participating in that, but also across the nation. That's open now, open March 11th and closes the 24th. If anyone needs help figuring out how to navigate the application process, which is not always intuitive, please don't hesitate to call our office and we'll have somebody help them out. Let's see. And we're expecting the next, so right now this is we've gone through a forester hiring event. This is the forestry technician hiring event. The next one we're expecting after this to come on board is the recreation hiring event, which is scheduled to begin April 3rd through the 17th. And as I get that flyer put together, I will bring that over and get it to all of you so that you can, and we'll also be getting these posted in the communities. So recreation, wanted to just acknowledge receipt of the letter that the board sent, Chairman Fraser sent us. You will be getting a formal written response, but I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to address some of those concerns, if that's okay. It's true that the visitor experience is I'm just going to read from this because is greatly dependent on our staffing levels. Years of budget cuts have left holes in our staffing levels across the Shasta Trinity National Forest. However, recent budget funding opportunities have presented themselves and given us this unique opportunity and time to increase our staffing across the resource areas. So not just recreation, but our botanists, our fisheries folks, our forestry people, recreation, all of those positions that we need to effectively manage the national forest on behalf of the people. So we're excited about that opportunity. We started this process in January. So we've been working on trying to get these positions filled since the infrastructure bill passed, and we really kind of had these funding opportunities lined up. So that's been an encouraging change. I wanted you all to know, and I'm sure you know this, we really have a very passionate and excellent recreation staff here on the west side of the forest, and they work very diligently on behalf of the people to provide excellent recreational opportunities to the public and to serve Trinity County. It has been clear to me since I took this position how important recreation is to Trinity County. I know it's a big part of the economy. I know it's an incredible value to the communities. Along those lines, even in our planning efforts, we're trying to make sure, we are making sure that we include recreation in those planning efforts. The August Phase 1 planning effort is a good example of that. We included the restoration of Scott Flat, Forest Glen, and Hellgate Campground. So that work is underway, and we expect Forest Glen to be able to open this year, which will be great. So that it's not lost on us, and I want you to know that we're including that when we look at these landscape treatments. We're not forgetting about the recreation piece, and as we're looking at staffing, recreation is important to us, and we're remembering those things. Also, along those lines, I want to say how much we benefit from the partnerships and the volunteer groups that we have here in Trinity County. Through the RAC process, through just volunteer groups, through partnering with the many groups that we have here in Trinity County. We're very fortunate to have such wonderful partners that are so committed to their national forests, and we greatly appreciate it. Okay. So one of the reasons that we're going to this more permanent workforce is the challenges that we face with temporary hiring. Some years it's boom or bust. We either get people hired or it seems like we can't get anyone. Housing is always a challenge, both the barracks that we provide and finding housing here in Trinity County. So we've gone to a more consistent staffing approach, which will be these more permanent positions or permanent seasonal positions. Because of the challenges with temporary hiring, we will not be able to open all of our facilities for Memorial Day. But what we're doing instead is we're working with the Trinity County Collaborative Group, their rec group, and talking to them about which priorities they see to make sure we have campgrounds open. We're working with the paper and the recreation guide to make sure we get that information provided. And for those that come into the community that don't have access to know which ones are open, we're talking about putting out the trap line like we do during fire. So the sandwich boards with these are open kind of a thing, so we can get people the most current information. So we're trying to be ahead of the game on that. And again, that's for Memorial Day weekend. We do have another shot at temporary hiring that's a little bit further down the road, which may allow us to open more facilities later into the summer. We're also hoping to get some of those recreation hiring event people on board by then. Sorry, this is a really long-winded. It seems like I haven't been here in a long time. The Barney fire. This what I thought I'd be talking to you guys about was fire in March, right? And I want to say how thrilled I am that it's raining and I had to at least wear a windbreaker. I wish it was pouring, but at least it's raining. We'll take what we can get. So the Barney fire, the current update, it's 100% contained at approximately about 30 acres. It's being mopped up and patrolled. And I want to make sure it's really clear that this fire had absolutely nothing to do with any of our prescribed fire efforts. It was not near anywhere that we had been doing any prescribed fire. Along those lines, I want to let you know that we will be doing some prescribed fire in the South Fork Management Unit. So we're looking at lighting some hand piles, especially while the weather is conducive for that. Also, the final bit of suppression repair will be starting on the McFarland fire in the next couple of weeks. So if you hear equipment coming into town, especially on the south side, that'll be equipment we're rolling out into McFarland, just button up a few things that were kind of got weathered out. So we're going to get that finished up as well. Big news is post-fire disaster funding for repair and reconstruction. We have some for infrastructure. That's the repair and reconstruction piece. For instance, the Goldfield Campground, the trailheads that had damage, the roads that were damaged, bridges, and the post-fire disaster funding is for the 20 and 21 fires. And these are some pretty big numbers. For instance, the August fire complex had $44 million attached to it for ecosystem work. And that's, just to let you know, that's for the 3 forests, so the 6 rivers, the Mendo, and the Shasta Trinity. So we're identifying work where we have NEPA coverage, like the work that was covered under NEPA in August Phase 1, the August Phase 2 work. We've got planned NEPA on South Fork Mountain to work with the 6 rivers to take care of that piece of ground. The river complex has a $20 million associated with it for the Klamath and the Shasta Trinity. Monument Fire has $4 million. The McFarland has $3 million with another $1.5 million for the bridge repair. So that's definitely on our radar as well. We're looking at these funding opportunities and prioritizing where to go out and get more NEPA put in place so that we can get more done. We want to get the fuels reduction work done. We want to get some trees back in the ground. We want to make sure our roads are getting taken care of. Okay, so lastly, I want to talk to you quickly about meetings. Had a good meeting with the collaborative subgroup, the rec group, last Friday. Had a good meeting last night with the fuel break subcommittee group with the collaborative last night. We have our Friday meeting coming up with the collaborative this Friday. And then lastly, let you know that we're planning tentatively to be reopening the offices at the end of May. We have to go through an employee notice kind of thing and have a plan put together, and it seems like this is a date that keeps moving. I'm just giving you the most current information, which looks like about the end of May. And I think that's it for my long-winded update. I apologize for the length.
I do have a question or two.
Go ahead.
So does the shakeup in the is the shakeup in the supervisor for Hayfork, does that impact the lead in the NRA, or is that still a separate?
That's still a separate. That's still the NRA Ranger Sarah.
Okay. And then secondly, it's been brought to my attention that under the Title II, there's a proposal by RCD to do some work up in the Covington Mill area, and that the RAC approved it, but it looks like you guys haven't approved it, or you're still thinking about it, or?
It's just still in the process. We got a couple of things to work through. I anticipate it'll move forward. Just needed to get some time with Kelly and work through a couple of penciling some things out. But yeah, it's supported. The concept's supported. We just got to iron out a couple of small details.
All right, good. I just want to make sure that we knew that I supported that.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, and I really do appreciate your phone calls, your monthly phone calls. Those are a great step forward in working together, so thank you for that.
Any other questions before we move on? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 1.2, adopt a proclamation recognizing March 2022 as Social Work Month. No fiscal impact.
Hi, good morning. Liz Hamilton, Director of Health and Human Services. I'd like to, well, I brought this item forward. I know that I want to acknowledge that we have staff that are participating online this morning as well. Joining in a national proclamation honoring and recognizing the work of social work across our nation and specifically Trinity County for us here today. We have 21 staff collectively between adult services and child welfare that serve vulnerable and at-risk residents of Trinity County, and they do amazing work dedicated to this field of social work, and I'm really proud of their integrity in the way that they conduct themselves in such sensitive work. And so with that, I would ask that this be adopted.
Thank you. Well, I will read this proclamation. A proclamation of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity proclaiming March 2022 as Social Work Month, whereas the social work profession for decades has been dedicated to improving human well-being and enhancing the basic needs of all people, especially the most vulnerable among us, and whereas this year's Social Work Month theme, "The Time is Right for Social Work," embodies how social workers rose to meet the most pressing challenges of all our lifetimes, the COVID-19 pandemic, economic uncertainty, and other crises, and whereas social workers are the largest group of mental health care providers in the United States and work daily to help people, whether in person or remotely, overcome substance use disorders and mental illness, such as depression and anxiety, and whereas social workers have always helped people overcome issues such as death and grief and help people and communities recover from increasing natural disasters, and whereas social workers have helped this nation live up to its values by successfully advocating for equal rights for all, and whereas social workers have continued to push for changes that have made our society a better place to live, including a livable wage, improved workplace safety, and social safety net programs that help ameliorate poverty, hunger, and homelessness, and whereas social workers possess the necessary expertise to assist our nation in some of its most demanding concerns, including their health and well-being not only during the pandemic but at all times, ensuring equal rights, improved health care, and mental health care for all, and immigration reform, and whereas social workers work in all facets of our society to meet people no matter their circumstance and empower them to live to their fullest potential, and now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of Trinity County hereby proclaim March 2022 as Social Work Month in Trinity County and call upon the Trinity County citizens to join the National Association of Social Workers in Trinity County Health and Human Services in celebration and support of the social work profession.
I will move to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I apologize if I may jump in quickly, and just wanted to say something before you voted on it. Having been county council, one of the great privileges is that I do get to work very closely with the social workers, and I just wanted to make sure you're aware, and I know you are, that right now, and since I've been working here, Trinity County has some of the best, most dedicated, kindest, biggest hearted social workers you ever meet. Their job doesn't end at 5, they're always on call. They're dealing with some of the most critical situations that I can't even fathom. They're in the homes of children who are being abused and elderly who are being abused, and they're protecting our community. So I just wanted to support this and just say you're very lucky to have who you have in this county.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Okay. Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, transportation, item 1.3, receive a presentation from Caltrans District 2 Project Manager Kelly Timmons on District 2's 2022 Trinity County Construction Look Ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors. David Kolbeck, Interim Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. Just wanted to take a moment to introduce Mr. Timmons, as you mentioned, District 2 Project Manager. So I believe he presented last May. Rick Tippett had introduced him at that point, and he had presented some maps, which is something that I'm hoping we continue to do annually moving forward in the future, just so that everyone here, the board, understands what Caltrans is doing year to year in this county. I believe actually the last time you were here was for Rick Tippett's retirement. So those maps I think will be useful, and so feel free to dive into those as you wish. I do want to say, as I'm new in this position, as we're looking for a new director, the idea of collaboration between Trinity County DOT and Caltrans is something that Rick Tippett was very much in support of and had helped foster. I want to continue that type of collaboration as it benefits both our county interests as well as state interests. So with that, I'll just pass it to Mr. Timmons.
Thank you. I'd like to I appreciate the opportunity to share with the supervisors our successes that we've had recently, as well as looking forward to projects on the state highway and like was mentioned already, in collaboration with the county. Recently, we've had some projects that we've completed, including Rush Creek and Trinity Center overlay, our Ditch Gulch curb improvement, which was a safety improvement, our paving job down in Platina and Wildwood area, a rest stop area, the Francis B. Matthews rest stop, and then Denny Road left turn lane, which is also a safety project. Projects that are in construction right now. First one I'd like to talk about, one that's going to be finishing up here very soon, which I think everybody will be happy to hear, is the Monument Fire Emergency Project. We're finishing up the slide material removal and looking forward to paving either this week or next week, as long as the weather permits us. We are looking at having a follow-up project, a permanent restoration project, following up the Monument Fire emergency opening. If that comes forth, that would address rockfall, catchment areas, drainage, and some mitigation. And it will be planned and have a lot better traffic control. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Monument Fire project. I understand that there was a lot of concern, with the public as well as the different agencies, with traffic control and other things. It is a concern of ours. It's a delicate balance between trying to get the work done in a very limited space, as well as trying to keep the traffic flowing. And I appreciate the collaboration we've had with various entities, including Burnt Ranch School, the Trinity County Transit, and others, with getting people through as best as we can and keeping those services running. Another job that's coming up that we're going to be finishing up this year. We're expecting to start work again on it in April and finishing it by the end of the season is the Swift Creek Bridge replacement. Other projects that we're looking to start this year are a couple culvert jobs. One called Trinity Culverts, which is mostly east of or west of Weaverville, and then Tidy Waters, which is east of Weaverville on 299. Both of those have multiple culverts in them, as well as some other project or other work. Most of these projects we expect to have one-way controlled traffic, no more than 20-25 minutes delay for the traffic. One of the things that we realize that's a concern, especially on the 299 corridor, is disposal areas. And we're glad to be proactive in looking for disposal areas. We've been working with the Forest Service as well as BLM to identify locations that we could dispose of material, as well as private parcels. Two of our culvert projects have disposal areas that we've identified, as well as we have another project that we're still in the design phase, and that's Poison Pond. And that's located just above Eagle Rock Quarry. We're looking at work putting some disposal site on the BLM land just above the highway there. That's a large disposal site. We're looking at over 1 million yards capacity on that location, which will help in the 299 corridor. Looking out further, other projects that we're excited about is the Del Loma pavement job and the Burnt Ranch pavement job. And both of those are in connection with the Trinity County STIP projects, which are funded through the county. Del Loma has the Downriver Turnouts is a county-funded project that is in connection with Del Loma, where we're going to be installing 2 turnouts, one in each direction, just east of Del Loma. And Burnt Ranch Cap-In, we're going to be installing a left turn lane at the school road, Burnt Ranch School Road, going westbound onto School Road. Both of those projects are STIP projects or county-funded projects that we're combining with our project. We also have quite a few other paving jobs. Tango Blue, which is on the north end of Highway 3. Let's see here. Trinity 3 pavement and drainage, which is it's on Highway 3 from Reading Creek up to the intersection of Highway 3 and 299 at Douglas City. As well as the other culvert jobs that we're looking to is Poker Bar Culverts, which is near the location of Poker Bar Road. We're looking at Weaver Creek projects, culvert fish passage projects here in Weaverville. And then just for interest, outside of the county going towards Reading, we do have a couple projects that are still in design or planning. One is, it's a long lead and it's going to be quite a few years down the road, is working on the Whiskey Creek Bridge, and then installing extending a bike trail in Shasta along 299, and as well as we have a buckhorn disposal site on the east side of Buckhorn Summit that won't have a lot of effect to traffic. It's mostly off-site. I'd like to open up time for any questions that the board might have.
Any questions for Mr. Timmons?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the ongoing communication during the monument slide. There was a lot of concern, a lot of scheduling, school sports, high school, all the commuting stuff, and I know it's a lot to organize. Like you said, there's only 2 lanes in much of it, so having an alternative bypass is incredibly difficult. And you know, the only thing that came to my mind was, I know during the big French Creek slide, they would work through the night. And is there, in the future, would there be more of an ability to utilize night crews? Or is that something that's too limited based on our region?
Yeah, you know, that did come up in this project, and we did look at that. There's a couple different factors that were made the 2 projects different. One is on the Big French Creek project, we closed the road during the daytime when we were able to actually bring the material down onto the road. And it has to do with safety. You know, we have to be able to see the rocks, you know, for worker safety as well as for the public. So we can only do the rock fall and bringing the rock down during the daytime. Then we only hauled at nighttime.
Yeah.
And during Big French Creek, we were able to keep the traffic going at night during the haul operation, because we ran the traffic on top of the material, and with the monument fire, we just couldn't do that. You know, there's just limited space. There wasn't the ability to have that type of an operation. We did look at that, and we were trying a lot of different options, and unfortunately, like you said, that, you know, and we all know that there just isn't a lot of space right along the river there.
Yeah.
So.
Cool, well,
Yeah.
appreciate your communication. And is Chris Woodward still at the office?
He is. We do have the PIO person for Trinity County is Mario.
Did that change or no?
Yeah, Chris is still in PIO, but
Okay.
I can provide Mario's contact information to the board.
Cool, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
With that, we will move on to the consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by one board roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Do we have any public comment or requests to pull any items from the public?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Oh, for COVID?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, a request to talk about it?
Yep.
I don't know.
You can speak on items on the consent agenda now.
Go ahead. Go ahead? Okay, then I'll go. It's brief.
My name is Angelina Rodriguez, and I'm here representing parents of Hayfork who will pull their kids from public school if the COVID vaccine is mandated in order to attend public school. We are good parents, we are thoughtful and intelligent parents, we are parents who care deeply for our kids. It should not matter what reason or reasons we have for not wanting this vaccine. It should only matter that we as parents know what is best for our children's bodies, not the government. We elect you to serve our needs. If you can be fully vaccinated and boosted and still get and transmit COVID-19, what is the point of pushing for this? Especially when many of our children already have natural immunity at this point. I have a 13-year-old boy who falls into the age group that has a greater risk of myocarditis. Why would I risk myocarditis, however small the risk, for a vaccine that barely works on a virus he has less of a 1% chance of dying from? For me, the reward is not worth the risk. I will pull my child from public school if the COVID vaccine is mandated, among many other parents. I believe I heard it was 40% to 46%. Please continue to fight for us on this. Please don't give up on this. It's really important that we maintain bodily autonomy. You know, whatever you believe in. My kid he's vaccinated for many things. I'm not anti-vax. I just don't believe in this one. It's not necessary. Okay? Thank you so much.
Any other public comment?
Yes, I can go now. Thanks, Angelina. I appreciate that. So, as I was saying before, I was here in November asking the board for advocacy in the push by the state of California to mandate immunization for the COVID to attend public school. And at that time, I told you emphatically that that would destroy my school district. Again, I'm Anne-Marie Swanstrom. I'm the superintendent of Mountain Valley. So I'm representing Hayfork. And I do believe I'm representing a lot of other people in this county who have reached out to me and expressed the same views. So while a lot of you might think, you know, we're just the Board of Supervisors, our jurisdiction is in schools, I would say that your constituents send their children to schools, and the health of our schools is very reflective of the health of our county. And I'm being real when I say that the struggle to maintain a rural, isolated school district is so hard, even without a pandemic. For anyone who knows, we've been under construction for the last 5 years. We've just got all of our facilities together, and it seems very unfortunate that almost half of the children in my school district would be pulled out because of this. So I am asking all of you to put your money where your mouth is and support the letter opposing immunizations that is coming forward from Senator Pan. This is a huge overreach. They shouldn't be asking school districts. In fact, they've been asking us to enforce things that were way out of line for a couple of years now, and I feel like this one is just kind of the icing on the cake. And as someone who is there as an educator and has been for 20 years, I feel like it's important to advocate for those who do not have a voice. And I believe that we should have local control, but we also need our supervisors to show support of, you know, what we believe in. And, you know, these are your constituents, but I do, again, ask you for support in this arena, because if our schools, you know, are destroyed by this, there's no telling what will happen to this county, which is already, you know, we struggle financially. You know, I don't know if you've been to Hayfork, but our infrastructure and our, you know, economy is, you know, it's a tough place to live. And I'm going to say the school district is one of the very biggest employers. So if our school district goes, Hayfork goes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Board. My name is Elise Hazard. I'm from District 1. I'd like to express my support for the opposition letter written to the state legislator concerning SB 871. The purpose of this bill is to require all children who attend in-person daycare, childcare, public, private school to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The wording in this bill is vague as to what constitutes being fully vaccinated against COVID-19 infection. 1 injection per checkpoint, boosters every 5 months. Would a missed booster terminate enrollment? Along with this vaccine requirement for attendance, the bill goes a step further by also removing options of personal belief exemptions from any additional vaccination requirement added to the future by the California Department of Public Health. If we allow this precedent to be set that emergency authorized use vaccines can be forced on our children, where will it end? What is stopping our legislator from assuming that our children will do this again for any other disease the CDC or CDPH deems a risk? As expressed in the letter, many parents hold strong concerns about injury to their healthy children from the COVID-19 vaccine, and these concerns are founded in the desire to protect their children. We know from testimonies given before Congress, internally leaked documents from vaccine trials, and even data from the CDC that this vaccine has a much higher rate of injury, and still is not FDA approved. So while the 1986 Act fully protects corporate interests from liability, does the state assume with this bill that our small school districts will be responsible for sustaining litigation from injuries while enforcing this attendance requirement? A bill like this does not exemplify good public health. Good public health matters should reflect data, personal responsibility, and most importantly, good public health should protect choice. If data from the CDC has shown us anything in the last 2 years, it's that our children do not carry the burden of disease when it comes to the SARS-CoV-2 virus and its variants. Per CDPH stats, children and adolescents from 5 to 17 years old account for 14.6% of reported cases and 0% of deaths. So while we know that the COVID-19 vaccine does not prevent contracting or transmitting the virus and will only minimize the likelihood of hospitalization, why would we tolerate mandating this vaccine on our youth who are at little to no risk of severe illness? I also just want to suggest that while we're looking at SB 871, that we also consider 4 other bills that are in current debate in the legislature. AB 1993, which would force employers to require the COVID-19 vaccine for all employees, private contractors as a condition of employment. AB 2098, which is classifies misinformation of COVID-19 by doctors and surgeons unprofessional conduct. SB 8766, which allows minors 12 years and older to consent to vaccine without parental oversight. And the last one, SB 1464, which would force law enforcement to enforce public health guidelines. Thank you. I have a few letters also from my area that I'd like to submit for the record.
Okay, do we have any other public comment?
Hello again, Jim Morey from Junction City. I'd just like to echo sentiments from both the previous speakers in support of the opposition letter you guys have prepared and hopefully will sign. I look at it from a little different approach as a planner, as a trustee for the school board. One of the things we try to do is project what kind of expenses, what kind of our budget we'll need in future. We just passed our second interim this last night talking about this year and the following 2 years. And one of the questions that I asked our superintendent was, what does the vaccination mandate, what would it mean to us at our school, at Trinity Unified School District, high school and primary school? And the response, which what I was expecting was, we're not really sure what it means because there isn't a mandate yet, and we don't know what the percentages of lost students and or lost teachers would be. We have the projections that were indicated earlier that it could be anywhere from 40 to 46%. What does that mean to us? It's hard to decide what it really means. We're just coming off a $20 million rebuild of our gymnasium that we just celebrated. We're in the project of rebuilding our main campus right now. And there's a lot of really positive, good things going on in our schools. And our kids are enjoying being back to school, and maskless, I might add. And so, with that said, I would just promote and advocate for choice again, and make sure that we're leaving the decisions for vaccinations to the parents, and give them the choice to make that decision. Just as we're giving them the choice right now to have their kids wear masks in school or not. It's up to them if they want to do that. And so I would ask you to sign the letter and send a forceful message to our constituents in Sacramento. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. John Brower from Junction City. I'd like to speak to item 2.5, Senator McGuire's cannabis tax bill, and wholeheartedly in support of it. It's a huge step in the right direction to completely repeal the cultivation tax and postpone the state excise tax for a period of time, help the licensed side of the industry get their legs under them and hopefully have some chance of competing against the unlicensed side of the industry. However, you're likely to see additional cannabis tax bills come before you during this season. And in a perfect world, the state cannabis tax would look a lot more like the state alcohol tax and the Trinity County cannabis tax. It would be production-based, flat rate, and progressively tiered to protect smaller producers. The McGuire bill, again, is a huge step the right direction, but if there is going to be a cultivation tax, we feel it must have those three essential components that have worked so well for the California wine and beer industry in protecting smaller producers. So I encourage approval of this item today, and also looking at additional bills that may be coming before you with an open mind, especially toward progressive tiering. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on Zoom?
We do.
What's that? Public comment on the consent calendar.
Adrian Keys.
Good morning, Supervisors and Chair. Thank you for placing the McGuire bill, AB 1074, on the agenda for the support letter. It is, as John Brower said, it's a step in the right direction. It's not the end of the day, but it's a piece of work that the state is doing that acknowledges the fact that the program, Proposition 64 employees, is not really working very well. It's not addressing black market cultivation. It's not transitioning the existing medical industry into regulation, and it's not really providing consumer access, which were some of the pillars of the bill, the things that the citizens of California voted for. So this repealing of the cultivation tax is a first step, and it's a big, bold first step. And I would appreciate your support for, with this letter. My only problem is that in the packet, the wrong letter is included. I've included a draft of the Origins Council support letter, along with an amended sort of Trinitized version, which I have shared this morning with CAO Coons to make sure that it was in the packet, or that we're voting on the proper things. Well, I do hope, because time is of the essence. Legislation takes forever, and then all of a sudden it moves, so we really need to get this out. I would hope that the supervisors can find a way to approve the letter, yet revise it to remove, the Origins Council language part and just put in the Trinity County part that I've also provided. And so again, I ask your support on this item, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Heather Gossman.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Good morning. My name is Heather Gossman, and I am a board member at the Mountain Valley Unified School District. I strongly support the letter to Senator Pan stating this county's school district's opposition to a mandate of the COVID vaccine for our children in order to attend school. This letter is important as it also shows how you, the Board of Supervisors of Trinity County, stand in support of the school districts and of the freedom of the parents to choose whether or not they want their children to receive the COVID vaccine. In the past few months, a sense of normalcy has started to return in our schools. Sports have returned with great enthusiasm, as well as after-school events such as dances. Our children are starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is still so much work to be done to help many of these children whose mental health has absolutely been compromised due to the stress, fear, and uncertainty they've experienced the past 2 years. They all need school now more than ever, and to allow a mandate to be imposed in this county would be a huge leap back. Enrollment would decline, and for those allowed to attend school, they would very likely not see many familiar faces of staff and teachers who lose employment due to the mandate. The board's original approval of the opposition to this mandate was empowering and sent a clear message that the Board of Supervisors, the school districts, and the people of this county stand together as a united front. So please sign and send this letter to Senator Pan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Scott White.
Good morning, Board and Chair. Scott White, Lewiston. I am the Vice President of the Lewiston Elementary School District Board of Trustees, and I am authorized to speak on behalf of our board in matters regarding COVID. I want to say that Jim Morey and the other speakers have made excellent points for you to consider. From the very beginning, our position in Lewiston has been that this particular vaccine and this particular illness, the right should be left with parents and legal guardians to make the decisions for their children. They have many valid reasons for it to be concerned, including the low actual impact of COVID on children. There's limited benefit of vaccines, and in fact, they diminish rapidly over time. There's also been limited study of vaccine safety, particularly the long-term effects. And it should be noted that there was a recent study, peer-reviewed and published, that found that mRNA vaccines do in fact cause genetic changes in modified DNA. That is something that the CDC said would never happen with these vaccines. We support personal choice here in Lewiston. The potential benefits and risks from COVID vaccine are many, and those are best addressed by each parent or guardian and their specific circumstances facing their child. I'll use an example of friends of ours. They have 3 children. The one child has some significant health issues. They chose, looking at the issues, to vaccinate that child, but did not vaccinate their other 2 healthy children. That is how the decisions for COVID should be made. The parents and the guardians make the decisions based on information. We really thank you for supporting. I think that the other speaker that said you have been helpful in our fight to make sure that the personal choice is kept. And we appreciate your continued support. It's been very valuable for our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have LM.
Good morning, Board. I'd also like to speak to the COVID mandate. This is Liz McIntosh, Junction City. I thank you so much for placing this item on your agenda, and I urge you to please sign this letter. I'm a parent of a Trinity High graduate and 2 children currently attending the Junction City Elementary School. I'd be first in line to raise my hand and say that I am not as equipped, nor do I have the time to be able to homeschool my children and give them the same quality of education and experience that they're currently receiving from their school. However, because my husband and I so strongly oppose this particular mandate, we would be hard-pressed if this should pass to have a conversation about what our options would be going forward for homeschooling or independent study. I know firsthand from working in a fiscal capacity at the Junction City School that these tiny schools have volatile budgets, and the loss or gain of just 1 or 2 children can mean the difference of over $90,000 in state funding. The price of this mandate just isn't worth the cost to our schools, in my opinion. I'm not anti-vax by any means. My children have had all of their other mandated vaccines, and during this Thanksgiving, my entire family had COVID, and my children breezed right through it and now have their natural immunity. The COVID vaccine does not keep a person from contracting the illness, and I feel that the facts behind it and its side effects, both for the short and long term, are being suppressed. I 100% respect and support a parent's right to choose what they feel is best for their family, but I think it's immoral to force this onto our kids who seem to be the least impacted by the disease without a deeper understanding of how it might impact them in the long term. Again, I thank you so much for having this item and encourage you to sign this letter. And maybe this mandate will go through regardless of what we do today, but at least we'll know that our elected leaders have the courage to take a stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kenneth Wiley.
Good morning, boards. Kenny Wiley. I'm currently the president on Mountain Valley Unified School District. And I just wanted to say, again, same thing that everybody's talking about. I have 2 points to briefly, of course, to support the letter to oppose SB 871. But I wanted to kind of make these 2 points clear to emphasize my position isn't so much strongly the reasons why I don't think we should be giving our kids vaccines, but it's something to speak to you guys as the board. To, of course, as always, elected people need to represent their people, and we're asking, people who are in support of this letter are asking to continue, the freedom of choice. So the health department makes their decisions, and that's not your guys' control. The school districts are supposed to make their decisions, and that's not necessarily your guys' control either. But what is in your control, and I want to really emphasize this, not just with this issue, but across the county, we want our county to be attractive. And with the hot issues that we go through today, from COVID-19 to cannabis to logging, We want our community to be attractive, and I think that's why it's so great when you guys represent your community as a whole on these types of topics, because when somebody comes from outside of the area, I want you guys to represent me well, and I feel like you guys do that. But when somebody decides to move their family to this community, a lot of people feel strongly about these vaccines for their kids. So when they're shopping around to move their families to a place where they don't have to be told what to do and how to breathe, they're going to be looking at counties like ours. And when we say, hey, come up here, we have great schools like everyone's been talking about, brand new schools, beautiful schools, and we have strong school boards, and we have a county that supports the school board. We have a close enough knit community that we can go and talk to you guys on the regular. And I think that's a very attractive thing. So when we want to draw quality people and quality families to this area, this is one of the big topics these days that might make that decision for people. They can go to Shingletown, or they can come to Hayford, or they can come to Weaverville. And when we support the freedom to choose, especially what goes on in their kids' lives, in their kids' schools, and in their kids' bodies, I think that's going to be a very attractive thing for them to consider to bring their families here. So I think that's where your guys' position and support of this letter comes into play at your level. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Rhoda Kane.
Hi, this is Rhoda Kane from Trinity Center, and I just wanted to, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just wanted to say that I support the parents of the Trinity Center children, or Trinity County children, to make choices for their own children, and I also appreciate Supervisor's support on the Cannabis task as well, and I'd like you also to see about the edits that Adrian was talking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I do not see any new raised hands, any chats. I think that's it.
Okay. Do we have any supervisors that would wish to pull any items from consent?
Do the edits to the letters require that we pull the edits, or can we leave them alone?
We have to pull them in there.
Okay, then we're gonna need to pull to 6.
2.5, please.
Items 2.5, 2.6, and
I have 2.7, 2.12, and 2.13.
2 and 1, 3. Any others?
What was the first one? 1, 2, 1, 3.
2.7.
Okay.
2.2, 1, 2, or 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 3, Pete?
1, 2, and 1, 3.
Okay, I marked the wrong one. All right, 2.12 and 2.13. All right, so item 2.5.
Can we do a motion on the remainder of
Oh,
consent?
yes.
I move to accept.
Right.
I move to adopt the rest of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Kogan?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we'll take these in order, I guess. My question, who pulled 2.5?
I did.
Jeremy pulled 2.5.
I pulled 2.5. I'll be recusing from this item as it would affect my interest in that cannabis license.
Okay. Now, item 2.5. Do we have a revised issue of the letter for item 2.5? You do have.
Richard may have it. The revised version of the 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
I do not. I have a revised copy, but it's not,
The one that just sent
I haven't put it into final format. So my question would be to council.
You can orally present changes and then we can incorporate them later.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. It's floating around in email space right now, but yes, we have it. So we can put it on the appropriate county letterhead, but it does, and the content of it.
Can you print that off so I can read it into the record? If we're gonna need it oral presentation, that way I don't want to try to read it off my phone screen.
I was going to attempt to read through what we have and verbalize the changes.
Okay, you can do that if you would so desire.
If you would like.
Instead of having me do it.
Okay. All right, so in paragraph 1, it would be revised to read, on behalf of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors, representing hundreds of licensed small and independent cannabis businesses, we are pleased to support SB 1074 McGuire, which would eliminate the state cannabis cultivation tax and provide overall tax relief for the cannabis industry. Paragraph 2, there are no changes. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to, I was trying to do this in advance. But there is a new paragraph to be added as paragraph 3 to read, rural jurisdictions in Northern California have suffered economically for decades since the collapse of the timber industry. Although only newly legalized and regulated, cannabis has provided economic support to many residents, and the opportunities created by Proposition 64 are just starting to be realized. And then there doesn't appear to be any changes to the next paragraph. Okay, no changes to the following paragraph. I believe. So the revised letter that we got for the final paragraph, I think may need an additional modification. It states, many of the small legacy farmers we represent are homestead farmers, and cannabis is not, well, never mind, I apologize. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know that it needs to be modified. So those were the only changes.
Okay.
If you'd like, I can state them again if needed.
I think we're okay. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Public, or
no? We already did public comment.
That's right.
Oh, do we need to open public comment again on this?
Thank you.
Because we did pull it from consent, so is there any more public comment? Okay. Seeing none in the room, do we have any on Zoom?
I see no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay, so we will close public comment, bring it back to the board. Anyone care to make a motion?
I will approve the motion as read.
Okay.
Or reread.
A second?
I think we probably need to clarify that a little bit before I.
That's revised.
So you
Approving the letter.
Rather than the motion.
Revised. If he wants you to make a clear motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to pass the revised edition of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors tax bill 107 from McGuire.
As read by Susie.
That's read by Susan.
Is that clear enough for the record? I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Okay. Supervisor Groves?
I do have a little discussion. If we could, I understand that I'm approving it, but I would really like to see a copy of it after it's done.
I think Joe would probably.
So,
Absolutely.
with that, I would say yes.
Supervisor Gogan?
Yes.
Supervisor Cox? Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Sure. We'll be going to adjourn. Okay. Item 2.6, and Supervisor Talks, I believe you pulled this one.
Yeah, just for the revisions to the letter, it was put into the packet with the signature line changed, because this is the letter that I sent personally on my own letterhead to Senator Pan. I am bringing it before the board, asking that we would send it in a unified way, and the other things that said District 2 or I needed to be changed to Board of Supervisors, and we, Trinity County.
We can't hear you.
Right.
Do I need to restate all that?
No. So, my question, and this would be for council, is do we need to read the revisions on this because we have the revised issue that's been posted, correct, Suzie? So do we need to read it into the record?
No, you don't need to read it. There are copies of it available if anyone in the audience would like to look at it. And it's available also on the website.
Right, so I guess with that, we will open public comment on item 2.6 once again.
I see no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. Close public comment, bring it back to the board.
I would move to adopt the, as presented, the revised copy as presented today.
I will second.
I have some discussion. So, again, I think the last time we sent something, I had the same nervousness. I will remain in support of this, but I do not like when we say that something violates the Constitution without any legal background on that. And so I would really hope in the future that we don't make blind accusations on that. That's all I have to say.
Any other discussion, comments?
I'll just share that I did have people reach out to me requesting that I oppose this letter, and I think the premise of it is based on Trinity County having approximately somewhere over 50% vaccination participation in this, and it's a difficult position to take. I mean, there's the position itself and there's the position within this letter. Personally, I'm not confident that the specific wording in this letter will have effect actually, but I do appreciate and respect everyone wanting their voices heard, and it is reassuring to hear the members of the school board and the school staffers, teachers. I respect the wishes of everyone having a choice, and as Keith said, some of the details of the letter, you can always nitpick the letter and stuff, but I did want to just express that I was requested to oppose this, not from many, but I do want that to be on the record.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second.
Okay. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2.7, Supervisor Groves.
Yeah, let me pull that up. The reason I pulled this was just a formatting issue. This letter was requested by Mr. Goulet in the Watershed Center, but it was meant to be a to whom it concerns letter that they can use in trying to get different fundings. So I would like to have the format of his address removed and the address be to who it concerns. And at that point, a copy of Senator McGuire and I sent him.
Okay.
And that's all I have. We do have Mr. Goulet here if you have questions of him about the letter.
Okay. First off, we will open public comment on item 2.7. Do we have any public comment? See none in the room. Do we have any on Zoom?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. With that, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Do any members of the board have any questions for Mr. Goulet? Would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move to adopt 2.7 as revised.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2.12.
So I will be recusing from item 2.12 and 2.13 due to the possibility of conflict of an alcohol license.
Thank you.
Is that because you hold one, Keith?
Both of these events possibly could be in a situation that I would be selling alcohol to this group, and so the conflict would be my financial benefit of selling to them. I am not selling to them in this case, but all licenses that I could possibly sell to, I recuse off of.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Right. With that, we'll open public comment on item 2.12. Is there any public comment?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass 2.12 as stated.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, item 2.13. Find no objection to issuance of daily alcoholic beverage license to E-Plant Spice, Chapter 62, to serve alcoholic beverages. Their dinner to be held in Veterans Hall in Weaverville on April 30th. Any public comment on item 2.13?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Right. All right. Anyone care to take a short recess before we move on to public hearings? Are we good? Okay. Public hearings. Solid waste, item 3.1. Conduct a public hearing to consider adoption adopting a resolution which establishes a schedule of fees for waste disposal and provides for appropriate exemptions and credits for the 2022 and 2023 annual solid waste parcel fee billing. No impact to the general fund. Revenue estimated in the amount of $900,000 to the solid waste enterprise fund.
Good morning, Diane Rader, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. This is the first in a series of 3 public hearings for the annual fee, setting the fees and credits for that cycle. The fee per dwelling is proposed to remain at $100 per unit, with tipping fees remaining at the same that was set in the county ordinance that was set in 2019. Credits available are the same at 50% reduction for the elderly low income, but we've increased the income limit on that to $27,180 for your household income. There's a 70% reduction for vacant properties that are unused entirely for the year, and 2.5 cents per pound for household recycling that is performed, that receipts are submitted with your billing by June 30. The disposal cards, which we reinstated, are going to once again be printed on the invoice this year, so please don't throw them away. You need to have them when you go to the transfer sites. It is possible to go ahead and take a picture of it with your phone or have a digital copy of it so that the attendant can look at it when you're at the site. That is acceptable. Sorry, I lost my place a minute. Proposed billing that for this year we're planning on sending out by April 15th, and the payments are due by June 30, and no credits are available after that date, and a late penalty of $35 per unit becomes due with any payments received after June 30. All of our timelines are shorter this year. We're trying to get to a point where we have the sequence completed and our final delinquents to the rolls on time to the auditor. So we're going to reduce the time that we take late payments this year. So it'll be generally the reminder notices that we usually send out toward the end of July are going to be sent in the first week of July after we go through and get all of the payments posted that we received in the last week of the billing. And I think that is it for my notes on that.
Do you have any technical questions before we open the public comment?
Yeah, I have one question here. So it says, fiscal impact, no impact to general fund revenue estimated at $900,000 to solid waste enterprise fund. And then below, if I'm reading this correctly, it says, rejecting resolution to prevent solid waste program from billing the parcel fee causing a loss of revenue in the amount of $900,000. So if we turn this down, you will lose the billing that we get at our house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Any other questions? All right, we will open this item to public comment. Do we have any public comment on item 3.1?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
I'll move to approve as presented.
All right, I have a comment. Ready?
Okay, and we have a motion and a second, so go ahead.
Yeah, so the dump sites are becoming some of the most complained about issues that we have, and I'm not in any way criticizing our staff or leadership there. I think that we've had a philosophy of doing the best we can for the least amount of money, and we have hung on that amazingly long. So if I heard right, the last time we raised fees was in 2019, and then it's been God knows how long since we raised fees for parcel. So I think as a board, and I'm asking this as a question, as a board, I think most of us feel, or I feel that our service is the best you get for the dollar that we're spending. But does the board at some point want to say, we want better service, we want waste, electronic waste taken, or do we not want to close down the dump because we're staff short? In realizing that that's going to cost more money and we have to raise more money. So we're caught in a catch-22 here, where we get one person telling us that your service sucks, and then the next person says, if you raise your rates, I'm going to dump it over the bank. And I think at some point we honestly have to have that discussion and make that decision and stand by it. And if it's that we're going as cheap as we can go and our service is going to be that way, I think that should be our stand.
So Diane, the fee study that the county has in process, that would offset some of what Supervisor Groves is concerned about. That's going to raise our fees up to where they need to be in order for you to provide the service you're trying to provide. Is that correct?
Correct. I need to provide my part of the fee study for that to be able to happen, but yes, that would affect that. And there is some section of it that, along with the fees, then there's also being able to find the staff have available to do the work. I'm hoping that employment is going to pick up sometime soon so that we can find people to staff some of the positions that we do have open.
Sure. And certainly you're not the only department that needs to provide that information for that fee study, but do you have a projection of what you think is reasonable as far as a timeline that we could consider? And is there any way, I mean, this is the first of 3 hearings, correct? So even if that fee study were to suddenly magically appear, it wouldn't be able to affect this, or you can change it?
This is for a benefit assessment that was adopted back in 1986, I think, before Prop 218 went into effect. And the $100 is not one that's as easily changed as the actual fees, like the tipping fees. Our fee study would adjust that fee that you pay when you go to the dump or when you get your trash picked up. And it's the $100 per year is what provides the infrastructure, and then you have your tipping fees on top of that. So it's a combination of both tiers on it to get it to a point where it's somewhat reasonable on it. I've been looking at the numbers on it, and I'm hoping to get the fee study done on it soon. It's just a matter of looking at every single part of it and seeing what that is to be included. But yes, I need to get that done.
So Supervisor Groves, are you suggesting that we should look at the parcel tax fee? Or were you kind of just saying more globally?
Well, I'm saying that's, I assume when I was aboard TPUD, it was the same sort of thing. You have infrastructure that is spread equally amongst people that are here, if you use it or not, but that's part of owning the property. And then you have the cost of disposal. And I will say that when the $100 infrastructure part was put in place, I don't think diesel was $6.10 a gallon. And in the past year, we just heard this morning that inflation rate in the United States was 10%. And so you can only starve something so long before it collapses. And I'm saying that. This isn't going to be super popular out there, I get it, but I think it's the discussion that needs to be had with everything on the table. I can't believe the cost for infrastructure hasn't gone up significantly since we first put in the $100 fee. And believe me, I have like 5 places I have to pay a $100 fee on, so I'm not a big fan of it. But my feeling is it's time has come to try to up the service, and I'm not saying get a Cadillac plan and, you know, everybody driving around in fancy vehicles, but to do the basic service, I think, is where we should look at it. So that was a long-winded way of probably not even answering your question, but, okay.
I've got a question. Is there any consideration in working with a third party such as waste management? Has that been looked at for the county before? I think Humboldt and Shasta both already do that. I don't know anything about that process, what it entails, where the staffing comes from, but I'm just asking from an entry level.
It's something that past directors have looked at. We had Ecology come in one time and give us an estimate for just taking over the whole system except for the landfill because they wouldn't touch that. And the estimate was up at using every revenue that we had without leaving money to keep the other part running that we needed running. It was really expensive. We talked to Waste Management they're the ones that hold the contract for the trash that we take to Anderson landfill because they own that. And we speak with them about what other peripheral things they can help us out with at times. And I'm in the process of asking a few of those. But it's not something that I've got any definite information on yet. But yes, we try and look at other things to supplement what we have going.
Okay, thanks.
So I have a question. We bring in about $900,000 to the billing of parcels, it says here. Do you know how much the tipping fees are annually?
It's a matter of, there's tipping fees and then there's the rep fees, and they're roughly $1 million each on those, and I don't have the number tied down yet. That's what I've been looking at in my extra time.
Have you noticed an increase or decrease in tipping fees, do you think?
Routes were down and sites, a few of them are up. Just the routes seem to have suffered from whatever we've been going through for the past year or so.
Thank you.
All right, we still have a motion in a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I'll move to approve 3.1 as
You already did.
You already did.
Oh my.
We have a motion in a second.
So, Council, what exactly are we, we were conducting a public hearing, or are we just approving that we held a public hearing?
You're actually adopting a resolution that's establishing the schedule of fees for waste disposal and providing the appropriate exemptions and credits for fiscal year 22-23.
Okay, thank you.
So the fact that we're going to do this, we're going to do the exact same thing 3 times?
No, this first hearing is to set the fees and the credits. And in June, then there'll be a meeting where people have gotten their bills, they've looked at them, they've called us with any problems they have, anything that we can't resolve, then it gives them an opportunity to come to you to resolve. And then there is the delinquent list that we adopt that will be in July.
Okay, right. And you had told me that, sorry. You had said if we were going to look at changing the parcel rate, that's hard to do. What does that involve? Do you know?
I would have to look into it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it
And
would
can we only do it, like if we do this, we're doing this for the whole fiscal year, correct? So we wouldn't go back and revisit that until the next time it rolls around?
Correct.
Any further questions, discussion? All right.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports and announcements. Reports from department heads. Do we have any department heads that would like to report out? David.
Good morning again, Supervisors, Chair David Colbeck, Interim Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. I did want to just have one brief report out that is similar to what I have said in the past, previous meeting, I believe, and that is a reminder both to the supervisors and to the public about some upcoming planning events that DOT is hosting, and those are for the Regional Transportation Plan update. Those events are going to be held, oops, one moment. Those events are going to be held on March 23rd here in Weaverville, sorry, March 28th in Weaverville, and then March 29th in Hayfork. And again, to remind folks, the Regional Transportation Plan is basically a guiding document for how the Department of Transportation prioritizes county road improvements through a several-year process, or several upcoming years. There are amendments, of course, that can be made to that, but it's a chance for the public to prioritize specific roads that they wish for DOT to address. That transportation plan allows us to capture state funding, as was presented earlier by Project Manager Kelly Timmons. It's a mechanism for us to serve the community as best as we're able, and it's a planning document that allows for public engagement. There is also an active transportation plan. Those meetings are coming up on March 23rd in Weaverville and March 31st in Weaverville. And there again is a chance for the public to highlight projects of particular interest to individuals. Those two meeting locations and times are on our website and on the Transportation Commission website. So I encourage everyone to address those and attend those. We are very interested in getting public feedback. The active transportation plan is defined as human-powered methods of travel, including walking, bicycling, and rolling. So if anybody has interests in bike lanes, in trails, in sidewalks, such as sidewalk projects through the middle of Weaverville or connecting different areas of Weaverville, that is something that folks are interested. They can help tell us what their interests are, and we can prioritize that in the plan. So with that, I just wanted to give a brief reminder. I'm happy to answer any questions that the supervisors may have.
Anyone have any questions?
On that particular or any DOT?
Any DOT, I suspect I missed some messages here, but any issues DOT.
So I would like an update on the Coffee Creek slide.
Okay, fair enough. As you're aware, in the Disaster Council, we had Cal OES present in the room there to speak to some degree about the status of OES funding and determinations that would include the Coffee Creek slide within the 4610 fire designation that is part of the river complex and the monument complex. That, I believe I reported out to you in the last board meeting, was one where DOT was pursuing funding through the Emergency Watershed Program funded by the NRCS. And I believe last meeting I highlighted that the timeframes for receiving that funding or being approved under contract with the NRCS was extended several months. That has not changed. We have received the environmental clearance that we were waiting on for quite some time that was related to the State Historic Preservation Office. So that one hurdle has been overcome, but we still now, I believe, go to the contracting phase or the approval phase, not only through the state NRCS office, but also the federal NRCS office. And that is going to be part of the lengthy time frame in order getting approval for that funding. However, there is also a hazardous material cleanup effort that is ongoing up in the Coffee Creek drainage. One of the locations that is adjacent to that debris flow, it requires remediation. So there is a chance that we may be able to utilize a contractor who is working on that hazardous material to address some component of the debris flow in Coffee Creek. That I'm not certain of and not settled on. We have sent, or Liz Hamilton here, Director Hamilton has sent a letter in coordination with Director Christy Anderson from Environmental Health to seek additional resources to see what is available from OES along that particular route. Does that address your question, or?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. What's the total timeline on the update for the plan?
That is a good question. I'm not sure. Senior Transit Planner Kimi Taguchi is in lead of that and managing the contract with Green Dot to develop that plan. I don't know the timeline, just be aware that it likely will take some months because environmental compliance, of course, is a component of that approval.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to follow up on his. So if the supervisors have things that we would like to have addressed in that plan, should we do it as a public, or does this come back to us to be approved and looked at?
I believe it will come back to you to get clarity on the entirety of that process, not only in terms of timelines, but how supervisors themselves can engage. I can come back to you with any of those specific details. However, I encourage all supervisors to relay this message to your constituents for the actual participation in those meetings, and I would suggest you are welcome to be at any of those meetings. Brown Act requirements adhere to.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. You said anything DOT?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Campbell Ridge Road, there's emergency access issues between Sollier and Willow Creek. Sometimes the volunteer fire department uses that because it's faster to go that direction to get to some of the homeowners on Sealy-McIntosh Road instead of driving all the way to Willow Creek. It saves about 30 minutes to drive over, but there are trees inhibiting the ability for a large volunteer fire truck to drive through there. I'm curious, should I address that with you as I am now, or do you want me to bother Forest Service, since it's Forest Service lands also surrounding that area?
And I might say absolutely bother the Forest. No, it is a county road, so it's one that I'm happy to address, and so bringing it up with me is appropriate. Otherwise, emailing or notifying my office of any particular concerns, not just this one or any concern, that we have a system of passing that information on to our field crews, road crews, to address any particular concern. My understanding was that road had been cleared to a degree of passability that was suitable at the moment.
Yeah.
We are continuing to work on that road, I do know, but I don't have a status update. If there is a concern about the type of vehicle that is needed, that may not be able to pass, then that is something I can pass on to our crews and allow them to prioritize that among their other tasks.
Fire engines cannot pass.
Fair enough. That is good to know, so thank you. Yes, it is appropriate to bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other department heads?
I see no movement on Zoom.
Okay. CEO report.
Yeah, I'm actually on 5.2, so if the board doesn't mind, I'll wait till then.
Perfect. Reports from members of the Board of Supervisors. I guess we'll start with Supervisor Gogan.
Okay, well, I'll start with the easiest of them. The Fish and Game Commission, I attended this last week. A couple hot topics for us are, the main topics are pushing back the deer season a couple weeks and possibly trying to get a antlerless or doe hunt, since Trinity County has a 2 or 3 to 1 doe to buck ratio. Also went to the Trinity Watershed meeting, great group, bunch of great projects going, fully support them. They're doing a wonderful job. They probably have 15, 20 things in line to do. and they do a great job. I commend them for all they do. NorCal EMS, I attended that this week. They are still, as always, running on a shoestring budget, but Donna is doing all she can. She's a great CEO, I guess, or head of NorCal EMS. They will be coming here on the 17th for a presentation in front of the board. So if anybody has any questions about NorCal EMS, they can get them together between now and then, which is May 17th here. I'm not sure of the time, but I will fill you in on the time prior to the meeting. Also was interviewed by the Cannabis Equity folks, and they are, it's a grant from Humboldt University, and it has to do with the criminalization and the war on drugs in Trinity County. They are conducting a cannabis study to assess and to learn how Trinity County has been affected by cannabis. And I think the whole board was in on this. And I think we have questions, or I think we have more interviews down the road, so it's an ongoing process. So we all had our first phone conversation with the Trinity Equity people, Trinity County Equity people. The last one is the steering committee, and maybe I should leave this to Jill. Did you want to speak on that? Because I mean, I could if you like.
It's fine.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
So the steering committee is a grant for business development to define a vision for strategy for operations of future business in Trinity County. There's going to be a series of workshops. The first will be, I think it's tonight. I know it's tonight. What time, Joe?
5 to 6:30 at the Weaverville Fire Department.
And the second one will be tomorrow at the fairgrounds in Hayfork from 12 to 2-ish, somewhere in there.
I believe it's 12:30 to 2.
12:30 to 2-ish. I want them to get there early. And that's it for me. Did I hit them all? I think I have them all.
So the steering committee is a steering committee of what?
It's actually not, it's a public meeting.
Did you want to know what they're doing? Or?
Well, no, what organization and what?
Go ahead, Joe. So
Trinity County begins placemaking process. So the county seeks the public input as it begins this placemaking planning. So the county is currently seeking public input as a part of a new planning process in partnership with Atlas Community Studios. The county has been awarded a rural business development grant through the USDA to help define a unified vision and identify strategic opportunity areas for future development. The project aims to address local challenges around 3 key areas: identify strategic opportunities and develop goals, strategies, and action steps in a custom placemaking playbook. The playbook will focus on 3 key areas: housing, workforce development, and revitalization strategies and overall quality of life. So to begin, the Atlas team will lead these in-person public visioning sessions for community members to give feedback about ideas about the future of Trinity County. All who live, work, or attend school in the community are invited to join the conversation. To participate, there is an opportunity to RSVP. You can go to trinitycountycaplacemaking.com. And I would imagine if you just walked in, they're probably going to say welcome. But they would like an idea, I would think, of how many are planning to come.
Oh, that's interesting. You know about it? Unified vision?
Well, it is tonight and tomorrow, so it's going quick.
All right, well, I guess I will go next. I don't have anything to report out, so that'll be simple. I did attend the meeting yesterday, but I'll let Keith speak to that one if he wants to. So Supervisor Talks, go ahead.
I attended a field tour of the BLM Oregon Mountain Project area on March 9th and heard the proposed actions that was discussed with members of the RCD, Sierra Pacific, and local stakeholders. That's always interesting and to me, it's such a great learning process for me. I did have my monthly meeting with Ranger Tara Jones. I appreciate so much that our forest supervisor has seen fit to direct those meetings with each of us, and think that that's really productive and appreciated. One thing Tara didn't mention was that there is an information session happening on April 6th, and here in Weaverville on that date. It's from 5:30 to 7, and I think the location is the Performing Arts Center. But there was some discussion of the fire hall there, so I apologize for not being certain on that. Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's 5 to 6:30 at the fire hall. Yeah, 5 to 6:30 at the fire hall.
Thank you. And then we went through that. So the last thing is, you know, we're all very concerned with what's going on in our world, and I just think it would be fitting to let people know that a local action is being taken in an effort to try to help. We do have a lovely family in District 2 from Ukraine, and they are going to do a fundraiser. Alessia Ratochka makes really decadent Ukrainian torts, and she's going to make them and sell them at the bandstand this Friday, March 18th, from 2 to 7 p.m. And so supporting that, all of those funds will go directly to help the people of Ukraine. That is the end of my report.
Supervisor Groves.
Yeah, so I had my first meeting with the Sierra Conservancy Board. I'm an alternative board member on that, so I've got a briefing on what exactly our roles are. So I'm still trying to figure that one out. We have had a couple of ad hoc meetings in this time period that things are moving forward. I'll just give a brief that as last I saw, we had 4 licenses that are ready to be signed out of the Appendix C. One of those in my district, so that's good news. And there was 3 more waiting that might be ready as we speak right now. So things are still moving, but they are very slow and much slower than the industry would like, but they are moving. I also went and was a speaker with the Cannabis TCAA group, and what they wanted to know why things aren't moving faster, and it was a little venting session for them and to get and rightly so, get words not through third hand, and it was a grilling 45 minutes, but I was alive, and it was, for the most part, it was respectful. Then had Disaster Council, which was the first time, I believe, that we were back in in-person meeting. That went fine. People being prepared for the upcoming fire season and what we can do, and a lot of different aspects that went through. But so what else did I do? Had my meeting with Tara, which is again always good, and I think that's about it. I'll let Dan fill in more ad hoc stuff.
Keith, I have one question on the Sierra Nevada Conservancy board you're on. You're the alternate?
I'm an alternate member
on their board.
On their board,
okay.
Yes. So their process for that, which the first day there, since I didn't really know what that meant, I was a little scared, like, am I going to be voting on things that I have no idea what they do? And so I am an alternate member. Part of their issue is that they have not expanded with the expansion of Shasta, Siskiyou, and Trinity. So we're in a big, large group, so they look to be, they'll probably be expanding their board at some time to break down the different counties.
At that time, would you become lead? Possibly?
Well, it would be possible that I would be appointed, or they actually run elections, so if there were 3 counties, the reps for those 3 counties would pick. So, like I said, I had a private consultation with their staff trying to just figure out what the roles are. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you had said that 4 licenses are ready to be signed out of the Appendix C, but I believe at our last meeting you had differentiated between people needing to get through the Appendix C process and then still needing to be separate from that in compliance with our local ordinances. So are these 4 licenses done with, if that's correct, both aspects of the process?
No, they've entered into the joint, when I refer to signatures is they are CEQA compliant signatures. Okay. And so they, depending on what their file looks like, they may be very quickly signed out if they're all completed, or they may have some more hoops to jump through.
Those hoops meaning with our local ordinance?
With our local ordinance, correct.
Okay.
And then it will go to the noticing period, and then it will be finalized. So, and there has been an uptick in Appendix C's. Dan, you remember the number? We have, I think, 32 that are in technical review, but there was, I think we're at 175.
And we can get into that a little more when we do our cannabis ad hoc report.
That's right.
So we can, I can dig up those numbers and we'll jump into those.
All right.
Will you be describing that noticing period then, or should I ask that question now?
We'll get into that then.
Okay.
So Supervisor Brown, do you have anything to report out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I totally botched it. My apologies, Supervisor Brown.
You don't apologize.
Yesterday, we had a Zoom meeting that I was on a panel, and Supervisor Brown and Supervisor Frazier were invited to be part of it. It was with 4 congressmen, Ashew, LaMalfa, Mike Thompson, and ours, Jared Huffman, the chief of the Forest Service. And there was 50 people told that it was brought on by Congressman Thompson to start working on making better communications and seeing what the Forest Service could do to work with agencies to lessen and improve fire fighting in the North state. And so Congressman Ashew is from the Bay Area, and she had a large fire, and that's why she's involved. Congressman Thompson is down in Marin and Solano County. And so it was a fruitful meeting. Hopefully it's a start of things and not a finish. So I laid out we had 5 minutes to speak, so there was pages of stuff I would have loved to got into, but you're doing the elevator talk and going very quickly. But I would say, as Congressman Huffman pointed out, I had specific questions that it seemed that nobody else had specific questions. And so hopefully it keeps moving forward.
So you 3 were 3 from Trinity County on this panel of 50 people?
I was the only one on panel. The other supervisors were invited to listen, but had the opportunity. Me and Jeremy and had a wrestling match to see who was on there. And Dan had, I mentioned it to Dan, and Dan didn't seem to have.
I didn't want to talk.
Yeah.
So who were the other 47 people? Comprised of-
We had tribal members up and down the North Coast. We had supervisor from Del Norte, Steve Madrone from Humboldt County. We had some members from Butte County, Cal Fire, other Forest Service members, the new head of Cal Fire.
UC Extension.
Yeah. Randy Moore.
Fire chiefs. Who wasn't there?
Yeah.
I wasn't.
I know.
I wasn't there.
I didn't see anybody from the Napa area, and I'm not sure why not. Was there somebody from Sonoma?
Nope.
No, okay.
But you said this was Senator Thompson's idea.
Right.
Are they calling it something?
Forest,
Fire roundtable. Fire something roundtable.
forestry, fire forestry or
So
something.
is it something that we can kind of watch the status or progress of online somewhere? Are they?
At this point, no. I think this is the beginning. I would hope that this develops into future looks, but who knows? This might be a one and done for all I know. Chief Moore addressed some of the things that we already have been told, that they're trying to expand and get better training and more people, and basically he was a little bit in the hot box. I'll give Congressman Thompson credit. He was kind of forceful at times. That when the discussion came to equipment in the wilderness area, and the Forest Service kind of said, well, yeah, we do that. And Congressman Thompson said, I'm not imagining all the phone calls I'm getting to try to get this process moving. So there's something broken. And he kind of hit that point a couple of times that, no, something's not working if I'm having to get issues moving. So.
So overall, you were pleased?
I'm happy that Trinity County is participating in the process, and it has potential to move forward. But it was just one meeting.
Sure. Well, thank you for doing that.
Right, are you done now?
Now I'm done.
Okay,
Now
Supervisor
Jeremy can
Reynolds.
throw his 2 cents in on that.
All right, I got more than 2 cents. RCRC was last week. It was the installation of the new officers as well as the regular meeting. Key takeaways would be that the Board of Forestry has not moved anywhere on their modifications to the building code. Technically, the emergency regulations that they put out, I believe last year, mid last year, are now suspended, I think due to a time lapse. So there was some confusion over, are the emergency regs still active or are they no longer emergency regs? And RC has engaged in a lawsuit with the Board of Fire and Forestry on behalf of all of its rural members unanimously because of the issues that this board has discussed, mostly last year. Lisa Lozier has brought up as well. So this lawsuit is really just a push to ensure that the Board of Forestry is engaging with transparency in all their processes. I think I was able to ask RC to form a cannabis ad hoc committee that would be a statewide committee composed of the most relative affected counties that are engaging with the legal cannabis industry, as well as having CSAC sit at that table. And there was broad county support, so that should hopefully move forward here in the next month. At the officers celebration or whatever, I was able to bump into our Forest Service Regional Director, Jennifer Eberlein, and Liz Berger. Had some great conversations with them about the happenings of Trinity County and opportunities moving forward into the future. So it's always nice to get out of the county and meet people in some of the larger forums that have so much broader experience than dealing with one county. They've dealt with states, multiple counties, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, all of it. It really helps me expand my perspective on how to deal with Trinity County specific issues by engaging with other people outside of the county and hearing their experience and what they've done to navigate some of the intricate processes and making things happen. But those are the main takeaways from the meeting. There's lots of updates on Senate bills, Assembly bills, things like that. I'm happy to share details of that, but it can be consuming, so I'll probably hold off for now. I was able to meet with Director Elliott with the DCC and just check in with her about state happenings on cannabis. She does have a confirmation hearing on March 30th. I requested that CAO Coons draft a letter of support for Director Elliott, kind of to show her efforts in outreach to the county when developing equity fund amounts for all the counties, but specifically Trinity County. So I believe CAO Coons is able to provide that. It needs to be received by the 29th of March. So as far as the board voting on it, since we don't have another board meeting, Margaret, how would that have to happen?
You'd have to do it in a special meeting, or you have to do it in a special meeting.
Okay. So, I don't know, I guess I'll work with Richard to develop the date for a special meeting. It would probably be next week, though. It should be a short item, Zoomable. Richard, do you have any comments on that? All right. On Saturday, I attended the meeting downriver at the Sawyer Fire Hall with Amelia from RCD, Lander from the Watershed Center. It was just a nice community outreach meeting, doing CWPP, which are the Community Wildfire Plan updates, on the Salyer, South Fork, Birch Ranch, Hawkins Bar area. And then also Amelia was sharing broader program information about EQIP grants and CFIP grants. American Red Cross was there discussing CERT. I would say CERT certification, but the CERT is certification. But the desire to have a CERT, which is a Certified Emergency Response Team established in the downriver area, and I think, something that the county would want to look at countywide. But essentially a CERT team, for those who don't know, are an emergency response team that can be used during any emergency. And it's kind of a way to fast track all hands on deck to the actual action zone without waiting for a bunch of processes and approvals. Since you're a pre-certified trained group, you can kind of be on the front lines as a regular citizen. So there's opportunity for that. Talked about, as I mentioned, to Mr. Colbeck, Campbell Ridge Road, emergency access. I was able to share. PG&E has a program. Well, I got two PG&E things, sorry. I was able to share about the PG&E Medical Baseline Program. A lot of people don't know about it, but anyone that has medical needs that depend on electricity, such as a ventilator or dialysis machine, things like that, PG&E has a whole program where you sign up with them. And in the case of a power emergency, power outage, they have people that will go in and check in on them and make sure that they have backup power, either generator, battery, whatever. It was an undereducated program that's out there. So during the winter storm, it became a topic, and so when I go to volunteer fire departments now, I'm trying to share that because some people don't know about it. And it was discussed also if there would be the ability or interest from the county to start an emergency contingency fund. Essentially a pocket of money that would grow that we could pull from during emergencies to fast track emergency response dollars and not have to wait for approvals from different agencies and different levels of government. My question would be, can we use any ARPA money to start that fund? You don't need to answer that now. PG&E is also doing a customer bill forgiveness. No one needs to apply, and I know this doesn't affect most of Trinity County residents, but the 2 regions that it does, it's probably pretty applicable. People that have past due debt with PG&E, it will be waived. That's what they're going to do. It's a lot of money. I don't know what the county specific is, but this is something that they're doing across the whole state. So it's significant. PG&E also Trinity Food Bank was awarded a grant from PG&E for $20,000. This happened a couple weeks ago. I don't recall if I reported out on it, but I did want to make sure that people are aware that Trinity Food Bank did receive $20,000 from PG&E to assist broadly. I think that $20,000 ended up going towards Winco gift cards for people that applied through, I think, either the food bank or some of the churches were offering those applications. At the RCRC function, I did bump into our representative from Enterprise, where our sheriff rents and leases the vehicles, and they have a whole program where they want to give us a bunch of money. And so I'm working with Enterprise to identify some of the volunteer fire departments that can utilize some smaller amounts of funds to complete some of their pending projects. But like I said, getting outside of the Trinity bubble has its perks, and one of them is finding dollars in Sacramento and bringing them home. So I'm happy to report on that. RCRC expanded their county lending capacity. They have a grant bridge loan program where if the county's been awarded a grant for monies, but it's going to be a number of months or time until those monies are received, we can go ahead and let RCRC know, and they will send us the money like that week, up to, it's like $1 or $2 or $3 million. So they're trying to essentially use more of the money that they have in their account to offer counties the ability to get things done faster, because they understand a lot of the processes with grants, a lot of the waiting time, and how some grants are for emergencies and things like that. So it is a nice opportunity that we have a direct access to through our membership with RCRC. And 2 more things here, or at least 1 more thing. The Vegetation Management Ordinance came up. Margaret, this one's going to land in your field. I was asked if we can utilize this Vegetation Management Ordinance a little bit more aggressively to promote people keeping their yards clean from fire hazards. Specifically, there's some larger parcels with lots of dead, dry grass, fields, blackberry brambles, old downed trees, some ranches. And I was given a copy of the ordinance. I looked it over. I think it's written really nicely and broadly, and there's some really interesting things in it. I'm happy to share the copy I got. I'm sure it's available online. But I guess my question to Margaret is, do we ever use this ordinance to promote action?
In my tenure in Trinity County, it has not been used.
So, how's the best avenue to look into? Is it an effective way of encouraging people to take on their vegetation issues? Would someone just file a complaint anonymously online and cite the Vegetation Management Ordinance? Would we ask code enforcement or the sheriff to please take this into consideration and utilize it as another tool? What do you suggest?
So all of the above are options. From a staff level, we just need direction from the board that you would like us to look into it and that you'd like us to come back with a proposal on how to begin enforcement on that. And we can come back with a plan.
Okay, I'm requesting board opinion on this. Is anyone opposing? Get the weed whacker out and we'll talk.
I'm not sure about that. That's it's a discussion I'm willing to have.
Okay, then we will have that discussion. I'll just pass that down to you. We'll start with you. And then I'll bring it back at the next board meeting.
Quick question for Jeremy. If RCRC lends you some upfront money because you're waiting on your grant, do they charge interest?
Well, it's not me, it's the county or the entity in which is applying for the loan.
I didn't mean you specifically.
Okay.
I mean that you generally.
I think it's very minimal. I'll look into it and I'll send you the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all you have for us, Supervisor Brown?
Yes, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. We will move on to ad hoc reports. So, Cannabis cultivation program ad hoc. Supervisor Cox, you had a question, and I am not sure if I remember what it was, but it seems like, how many checklists are we talking about?
No, my question was to do with noticing. Once somebody gets through the CEQA and through whatever they have to do as far as our local ordinances, I thought I understood Supervisor Groves to say it goes into a noticing process.
Yes.
I want to know what that involves.
Legal notice, so it's this, same as other planning projects. It'll be a 7-day, I believe. 10-day notice, and then you, anyone who is opposed has an opportunity to appeal.
And that's noticed where?
It will be noticed in Trinity Journal, and
Anybody within 300 feet will be.
we'll get a notice in the mail.
And there's 10 days from the time of noticing in the paper.
Correct.
And then they can appeal that process, which then has to take place within another 10 days.
That is all accurate.
Thank you. With the $500.
So you have to ask for that process to begin within 10 days of noticing, but then there's 10 days more for that process to take place in. That was confusing.
So it hits the paper, you have 10 days to file an appeal. The county has 10 days after the appeal to have the hearing, which would be in front of the Planning Commission, and then that could be then appealed again to the supervisors, which then could go to a court case.
Okay, so since Supervisor Groves kind of went through the minimal part of the cannabis report out before, do we have any other just questions about cannabis?
Yeah.
Ad hoc, what do you got?
I just wanted to know if we're going to see an uptick in approvals, not due to the Appendix C's being filled out correctly, but now we have a new planning director and some funds to upset the cannabis department. So all in all, should we see a rise in the amount of licenses that obviously have a correct?
Well, first off, we have a new cannabis division director, not a new planning director.
Well, since we're talking about cannabis.
And there has been, the reports we're getting that the Appendix C's are better quality, but that's not necessarily due to the hiring that's happened at the county. That's because the people that are filling them out have been in contact with county and our consultants, and they know what to do now. So they're turning in a better product. It's cutting down on the response time, and things are moving more quickly.
I would say in general, the problem, it's the initial group through and I've used this analogy and I probably used it here, but it's a river with a bunch of dams, and we break one dam open and the water goes rushing down, then hits the next dam. But once it's flowing behind. And so it's that every time we get to a new process, there's processes that need to be put in place. And so we're coming to the end of breaking those dams down as we move the Appendix Cs into staff's hands to look through the items and then to notice them out. And of course, we understand that there's potential for appeals and lawsuits. So I think all the staff is being very cautious to make sure that these are done properly and that there's no reason for them to be appealed in the end. If that makes sense.
So with these processes, these bridges, dams being broken down, and the process is kind of getting a little better every time, we'll say, with people know. Is there good communication between Lakeville, Helix County, and the applicant?
In my opinion, yes, we've stepped that up, or they've stepped that up. There's, on certain cases, that they actually reach out to the applicant, and then they're holding more. The decision has been made that having these big meetings is less productive than having individual meetings with them, and they've become more flexible on meeting times. So maybe nothing is happening as quick as the industry wants it to happen, and they are desperate for things to move forward. But from a governmental side, things are moving, and I think once we get this kind of last hurdle out, I think things will be moving. We'll be waiting more for the industry to get the proper stuff in than waiting for us to get it out.
Again, I ask this every time, just from my knowledge, and some of the knowledge, but what is the most common thing that keeps your Appendix C from being approved? Is it still not filling it out correctly, or omissions?
We haven't had an update on that. I don't know if David wants to talk to that.
Good morning again, Supervisors. David Colbeck advising the program. So I actually will say that, no, I'm going to defer any specific answers to Director Connell, who is not here, and I don't wish to speak in his stead to any great degree. I can pass on any information or questions to him that might be appropriate. I will say that I can't even answer your question directly right now anyway. But if there's something that you wish to know that I can bring to him, I'm happy to do that. But again, I will refrain from diving too deep into it.
Thank you.
So we are definitely seeing a bigger percentage make it to technical review that gets submitted. And now we're seeing things being resubmitted, and I believe the majority of those are making it to technical review.
So soon enough, we will be kind of caught up, and we'll be waiting for them to give us stuff instead of vice versa.
That's my hope. Yes, that moving through that process we'll have more capacity than they're giving to us. Now, if that happens, I would anticipate the consultants to say, okay, you want more, we'll give you more. So, but that's kind of the goal.
Okay, I think the consultants said they could do just about anything we could throw at them.
The other consultants will send more work to try to test.
Oh, I got you. Fair enough. All right, that sounds good. When do you think we'll get to that point of we're asking them instead of them asking us? Any future time frame?
We've reached that once.
Right.
And we did, and we got like 50 more, because we've reached the capacity. We had like, I think we were hovering right around that 110 to 120 Appendix Cs, and they had reviewed them and sent them back, and we said, well, we're getting to that point where we need more Appendix Cs turned in. I think we got another 35 or 40 that next batch that came in. So
starting to get there.
Yeah.
it is, my biggest concern is that now the ones that have come out of review, how do we get that, how do we get that through our system and get into noticing? That's the next kind of breakdown wall dam, is to get that through with all the processes and with our new director, who so far he's made it 8 days or whatever, so still with us. So that will be the next step. So we hope to have those soon, very soon.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on that front? Okay, well, our limited density rural dwelling ad hoc, we're still gonna kind of hang on in case we need to make any decisions regarding timelines and stuff, but we're looking at before the planning commission with an ordinance in April.
Okay.
So that's, it's up to Lisa when it gets on the planning commission agenda right now, but tentatively for April. So.
Just a side question, do they decide to go to 2 meetings a month now, or they're staying with the one, the planning commission?
That is the question. There has been talk of both ways, and if the board has any input on that, please let us know. Because at this point, it's one, but there is a lot of items coming down in the next couple months.
I would be supportive of 2, just because the length of time that these things have been going, it seems to be, the last one was 5 hours. Which is, 11 o'clock. A lot of people don't come from right here, so like yourself, you gotta drive. And a lot of others, so I would go to 2. I would favor going to 2 a month, just to maybe make the meeting a little shorter, and to deal with anticipating more volume through the cannabis licensing.
And my question for that would be, is the board really the one that should be making that decision, or should that be the planning commission and planning staff?
Ultimately, it'll be the decision of the planning director, but again, I believe she was seeking input from others to get an assessment before she made that decision.
Yeah, and I think that's, personally, I think that's her decision to make, so. But
I will say, my thought is that it should always be two meetings a month, and if one gets canceled, one gets canceled. I mean, that's kind of the, I don't even remember only having scheduled one meeting a month.
I think it is scheduled as 2 meetings a month, and then it was always one for a while, then Cannabis came and it was 2 long ones. So, all right. Well, that will end our reports and announcements. I think we should take about an 8-minute break before we go into county matters, and we'll re-adjourn at 11:35.
I'll just see, re-adjourn means relieve. Reconvene.
like just spin.
Throw it away.
That was a little before my time, though. That was just.
Joe Howard. Okay.
Okay. We will be moving into county matters. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request an item be heard out of order.
Chair, could I request that we hear the addendum out of order? Addendum first.
Addendum first, before 5.1?
Yep.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments along those lines? I lost my addendum paper. Do you, any specific reason why you would like to hear that out of order?
Oh, just because there's members in the audience that are waiting for it. Even though they've already made it this long, I just figured, you know.
Okay. Does anyone have any issue with that? Seeing none, I'm okay with that. We can hear the addendum first, but that's under CAO. All right, well with that then, we will move on to, is there an item number for the addendum? It says A. All right, item A. County Administrative Office, item A. Select proposals for funding pursuant to Title III Secure Rural Schools and Communities Health Determination Act of 2000 and authorize the county administrative officer to sign the agreements. $191,000 from Title III funds. Dr. Kane.
So we have quite a few proposals and we are oversubscribed. So we're bringing this to the board for either a very long and lengthy discussion today or direction from the board to, we really have three different options. We can schedule a separate meeting just for this item and ask the participants to make proposals. We can direct staff to just bring back, in the past that's what we've done, but we've never been oversubscribed, so it's pretty simple. And we had fewer participants, so they would kind of work together and move forward. Or the board can select a panel to review and speak with the applicants. So it's kind of where we're at. This is the first time we've had really a big oversubscribe, so that's why we brought it to the board in this matter. So we're kind of looking for direction. What's the date that has to be completed, Susie?
We're plenty of time.
Okay.
As far as our timelines, I do know that some of the projects and those that are requesting funds like to know sooner rather than later so they can know whether or not they're building those projects into their year. Like the fuels reductions projects, they usually like to start working on those around this time of year. But we are fine with pushing our awards off.
Okay. And usually, what, about 18 months we sign contracts with each of them?
We have, yes, we have historically done 18-month contracts. We can extend those, we can do them for longer, just kind of, that's an internal process that we can do.
Okay. So it's kind of the pleasure of the board. It would be if, we notified, I believe Susie sent letters out to each of the applicants, letting them know that this is on for today and there could be a discussion regarding each application. So I know we have a few in the audience and maybe some on Zoom. So it's really the pleasure of the board. The method you want to use to determine the awards.
All right. Thank you. Well, does anyone have any technical questions for the CAO before I open the public comment?
Yeah, so in your discussions, you have three proposals that
We don't need the, we don't see
yeah,
the
that
direct line.
you don't see the, if those are removed, then how much are we short?
Well, and actually, in asking to remove those, I would say that, for example, one of them, if you look at the breakdown, think that you might take away certain items in that breakdown, but I don't know that you would take down all of it.
Well, that might be for discussion later instead of technical question portion.
Exactly,
After
it's just if
public
you're gonna
comment.
start doing math.
Yeah. Don't start with
Mhm.
100,000, so 290, so you're still 100,000.
Any discussion mode? Is that-
No, not, well, technical question mode.
Still have some questions. If we removed the ones that we determined to may not meet criteria, would that make us undersubscribe, but it wouldn't?
No.
We'd still be oversubscribed.
According to the staff report, 47% oversubscribed even after removing those.
Oh, that's after?
No.
Oh, that was prior to, okay. So that's still gonna be,
Dude, I've got a technical comment. It's solution oriented though, so should I wait till discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
So just to answer that question, if we removed the 3 entirely that I said I couldn't, staff can't recommend full funding for, we would still be $53,000 over.
Okay.
I've got a comment, oh, sorry. I don't have a comment.
Okay, well, I will open public comment and then we can get into the discussion portion after that. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Amelia Flights. I'm the Trinity County Fire Safe Council Coordinator. I'm with you today as many of the Fire Safe Council partners have applied for this funding. I'm here today to encourage you to make your decisions, as many of the applicants are looking to move forward with their projects. Many of them are based around community events that we hope to all happen and implement this spring before fire season gets kicked off. We thank you for the opportunity to be here today, but we would like to also not penalize those who were unable to attend, as we were notified late on Friday about this meeting, and with the board meetings, there's no specific time, so it's hard for people to rearrange their schedules. So just thank you for this opportunity, and as you go through, we have in the past, Trinity County Fire Safe Council has put forward many projects and supported many of the applicants, and some of the projects are scalable, so we do hope you take that into consideration as you move forward. I also implore you to consider what projects need to happen in Trinity County, what are Trinity County's priorities. Many of our volunteer fire departments are underfunded, and continuing to support them in our immediate response is valuable, as well as continuing the implementation on actions to help not only the public, but also our forest management, as we know that there are many, many untreated acres. This proposal, all of these proposals, we find are valuable, and we hope that you find value in what they have proposed and how it will impact and change and provide resources to our community members. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gloria Reynolds, Downriver Volunteer Fire Chief. This is all kind of new to me, so I wasn't super prepared to speak today. But as far as speaking about our request for radios, I can address that issue because it has been something we struggle with a lot. A couple of years ago, purchased some new radios. I was trying to not over budget and buy the same radios that we had because we've fairly gotten along with them fairly well. We had a source in Fortuna and everything. I went and I purchased more of the similar radios, and just have found that they're just not cutting it. They are changing to a digital radio format too, as well as not just the frequency problem and the repeater problem and stuff, but there's just and so Weaverville got new radios, and they are basically are testing them out for us, and they are the ones that are recommending the newer style of radio that I'd like to purchase for our department, so that when we get out there, we just struggle with where we are. We may get a call and we'll say, okay, pull over, because we were getting it, so pull over, maybe we'll get the rest of it, you know, and then you don't get it. And so then you get back on the road and then they're talking. It's just one of those things, like you just can't tell where you gotta be to get the whole message and whether or not they're gonna hear your whole message. So it affects our safety, it affects our ability to do our job. And if it could include, that the money could also include pagers. Our pagers are from super, super long time ago. They run at $500 a piece for just a decent new pager. And we don't have any pagers at this time that are decent pagers. They are all dinosaurs, basically. So my request is for you and pager money. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Fall. I'm with Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department. We would also encourage you to do your best to make a decision today. Some of the items that we have proposed would take place in May. So given the time that it takes once you approve it for the county staff to process the grant agreement and go to our board and all that kind of stuff, we're running out of time to accomplish the things that we hope to do. We had submitted a proposal for $2,700. $2,000 was for a community chipping day. That's not scalable, just because with the time and the distance travel, once the crew comes up there, they pretty much spend a full day. So you can't tell them just, do 9/10 of a day. That was $2,000 of the request. We requested $275 for to do some work around the Oddfellows Hall, to actually install fire-resistant vents and non-combustible landscaping as part of a demonstration day, part of our Firewise activities, just to show people how it's done, get them involved, get them hands-on doing it. So those two things we'd like to keep, if you don't mind. We'd also put in $325 for a ranch gate for an evacuation route. And so I know you guys have to cut, so if you're going to cut, that would be something that could be cut cleanly to reduce that application and make sure everybody gets some of the funding they need. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm in the back.
Hey, Chairman, I have a comment from one of the applicants on behalf of one of the applicants for the grant.
Okay, did you just receive the email?
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's no,
you can read it into the public record.
all right. I received an email from the Willow Creek Fire Safe Council, and their comment was, after being updated by Amelia from our city at the Solid Community Meeting this past Saturday, the Willow Creek Fire Safe Council feels fortunate to be, have heard of the funds for South Fork Road and to learn that the CWPP has been covered by RCD. They feel that there is no longer an urgency for the $10,000 that they would ask for, and they are happy to yield that to another organization.
Do we have any other public comment?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
So we will close public comment, bring it back to the board, and I think the first thing we need to determine is if we want to try to get this done today or if we want to try to schedule a special board meeting to address these issues, or if we would like to appoint a committee to deal with it. So that'd be my first question.
I think we have capacity to get through it today, and I have a couple comments as to why, and a question also. And the question would be for Chief Corbett. I heard a rumor that, does the fire department have extra radios from the initial 40 purchased last year to share with other fire departments?
I don't know how many we have left on those radios. Good majority of them have been shared with other departments. There are
Okay.
maybe a few left.
Okay.
I think, maybe less than 5, but
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess my ask is that, you know, Downriver Fire is asking to purchase $12,000 of radios. I believe it's for 4 or 6. Is that something that they can work with you directly on, and then we can pull that funding out of this?
So we got that initial funding through the Trinity County OES Emergency Services Grant.
Yes.
A lot of those radios are not the best of radios. We've got probably about a 50 to 60% failure rate on those radios.
Okay.
So right now we're in this process of contacting the manufacturer, who used to be a really solid manufacturer, and see if there's a workaround, a fix. Because right now, like I told Gloria, that I was hesitant to issue her the last few of those radios I had just to have them break. And so we're unsure on the future of those radios, whether or not they'll end up going back and getting refunded out, and we'll still have a few available, or they're just garbage and we're stuck with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So regarding, you know, after the Willow Creek Fire Safe Council's pulled out, there's 10,000. With Downriver Fire, they were unaware that the Community Wildfire Protection Plan is covered also through RCD. So that's $12,000 that they don't need out of that ask, which would remain, leave $12,000 still being asked for those radios. And with the other 3 being removed, I believe that comes to, what is it, 172 plus the 50,000 from Weaverville.
Supervisor Brown, I believe it comes to $222,278, leaving us with a $31,278 over our available funds.
Are we like taking this on now as discussion points when moving forward?
Well, if you would like to make it, we're still in discussion, so I would like to determine, that was Supervisor Brown's justification for why he thinks we can take this on today. So if you have other thoughts, you can bring that up too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd also ask how, if someone from Weaverville Volunteer Fire Department can speak to, you know, can they lower their ask by $10,000 or $15,000? Can the watershed lower their ask by $10,000 or $15,000? And is RCD able to budget all on those larger asks? If they can budge a little bit, then all the smaller ones can be covered for their needs. That would be my ask. I know we're in discussion, but.
Okay. So, any other?
Are we deciding how or what?
We're deciding how at this point. If we want to have a special meeting, or if we want to, if we think we can power through this today.
I think that there's some bigger discussions to be had. I don't mind powering through it today. I understand, you know, Carol's point. She'd like to know what it is she's getting as soon as possible, and getting us all back together to vote again later is difficult. But I do think that there are deeper conversations to be had. For instance, one of the removals was a large chunk from the Douglas City Volunteer Fire Department. And if you break it down, it seems to me that you can't draw a straight line to federal lands with your bunker gear or with your thermal imaging cameras, but they're asking for wildland gear, for extrication equipment, which may or may not, I mean, the 4 points of the grant say that if accidents happen on federal land, then you need the equipment to respond to that. So, you know, someone more technical, Todd's in the room, he may be able to, you know, speak to that on their behalf. GPS units, I don't think you can just take the whole ask away from them and say that none of that makes sense. And so I'm trying to answer the how are we going to do this question. I did talk to the director of the RCD, and you know, my concern there was with, they have a very large administrative fee, as does the Watershed Center. I understand that. It just looks painful to be talking about these smaller asks and then they have like 10 grand as admin fees. And
while I'm not criticizing, I understand that they have that. It's just, could they bend on that a little bit? Kelly said they could. And he kind of spoke, I said, do you think, I didn't have a chance to ask Nick, do you think if I asked Nick, he would say the same thing? And he said, probably. So those kind of questions. So I did kind of a cursory chart of what, I thought could be removed and got it down to within $3 of 191,000. But I just think these questions need to be addressed before we just make broader assumptions.
So is that a suggestion that we have a special meeting?
That's however you want to do it. I'm happy to plow into it, but also those people may need, and Millie's point is well taken. We didn't say we were doing this at, 11:50 today.
Do we have any other supervisors like to speak into this?
Yeah, I would like to speak into it. So I think it'd probably be best to have a special meeting, have some of the representatives here from, certainly from the 3 that are getting shorted, which is one of them is my people. But that's not particularly my concern, but if we're going to try to shave something off, I'd like to hear from the entities and the department heads of those entities, and if they really can't afford to take $6,000, $12,000 out of their budget to make this thing balance correctly. And I don't think we have that here today.
Well, and then the other concept is we have to look at this from a county-wide perspective, the greater good. How can we take $191,000 and make our whole county fire safer than we are right now? Will the entities that we award certain funds to truly be able to implement those funds? Because it's my understanding that there have been monies awarded in the past and they weren't able to be implemented. They all best intent for sure, but those deeper questions I think need to be asked so that we make sure that we're as great as stewards with these funds as we can be.
I'd like to add just for your consideration, I did receive an email from the Douglas City Fire Chief, and he said to go ahead and remove their request from the list because he agrees that they don't do much work on federal lands and we can't draw that line.
And I got an email from Kelly Sheen, maybe he's willing to speak to this. Kelly, are you on there?
I am. Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
As Supervisor Cox had mentioned, we had a little bit of a strategizing session about dealing with this because that's typically been the case, with Title III allocations in the past where the Fire Safe Council would oftentimes, try to make this work and make it easy as possible for everyone. I would echo Amelia's comments about trying to get this done as soon as possible. I would highly recommend that we try to do this morning just because there are time-sensitive implementation tasks within these specific proposals. The RCD certainly could scale back its ask, but in the cases of, and in reviewing all of these different proposals, my recommendation would be that, the smaller ones like from Coffee Creek Volunteer Fire Protection District and Trinity Center BFD, and even in reviewing like Trinity County Search and Rescue, I would recommend that those be fully funded and that the remaining funds come from the RCD and or potentially our partners at the Watershed Center and a few of the other ones like the River Fire Protection District that could be reduced, scale. They're scalable. They're oftentimes meant to be scalable for this purpose.
And I did reach out to Nick with Watershed Center, and he's fine lowering their ask. Asked him for a specific amount, but he hasn't responded. He might call in momentarily, but he is flexible on their amount.
Supervisor Groves, you've been fairly quiet.
I'd just as soon try to plow through it. I know that there's not, we might not have all the expertise here. My second alternative is that we form a committee that sits down and does it versus having a special meeting So, either way, whatever.
Is Sander on?
I personally, I would like to see some, I don't know, there are some issues that I have. It's like some explanations, even like what Carol brought up, with the $275 for the Odd Fellows Hall. I'd like to see the line for that one to federal lands. You know, it's like, okay, it might be there,
It's
but
Firewise Community.
Firewise Community, okay, so those are the kind of things I want explanation on. And I don't know, I have a hard time jumping into it all today. It seems like we could end up missing something. I know that, I understand that we need to get it done before our next meeting. That was my reasoning behind having a special meeting instead of a committee, is when we actually had the meeting, we could approve it and be done with it. But I don't know, I can kind of go either way.
Watershed Center offered to half their ask, if that's helpful. And I believe that puts us right into the ability, all the smallest ones, which would be Coffee Creek, the 12,000 for downriver radios only, the 2,000 for South Trinity, the search and rescue, 20,000, the Trinity Volunteer Fire Department Education, 2,700. With those, that adds up to 43,000, which leaves 148,000 to fund the Weaverville, VFD, the RCD, and the watershed. If watershed only needs 40 of that, that's 108,000.
Supervisor Mark, can I just interject real quick?
Yeah, of course. I don't do numbers.
If the watershed center if we cut their ask in half, which would drop it from $78,778 to $39,389, that actually leaves us an extra $8,000 to apply back to somewhere with cutting 100% of Douglas City, with removing the 12,000 from downriver volunteer fire, removing the Trinity the sheriff's office animal rescue request, and Southern Trinity area, and Willow Creek Fire Safe Council. So we could put that 8,000 back into the watershed center, and you would be funded within our allocation.
Okay. That's one of the things I was hoping for in this meeting, was that somebody would be willing to give up money instead of us having to take it from them. So that would make it a lot simpler.
So 17. So with that, it looks to me like we can, and you're fully funding Weaverville Fire?
Yes.
Okay, and so then we put,
Okay. If you'd like, I could run through the
Way to run it.
total numbers for those real quick.
If you would.
Yeah. So Coffee Creek, we would fund them at $6,300, which was their original ask. Downriver Volunteer Fire Department, we would fund them at $12,500, which is
The radio portion.
the radio portion of their ask. Southern Trinity Volunteer Fire Department, we would fund them at $2,000, which was their original ask. Trinity County RCD would be funded at $50,000, which was their original ask. Trinity County Sheriff Search and Rescue would be funded at $20,000, which was their original ask. Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department would be funded at $2,700, which was their original ask. The Watershed Research and Training Center would be funded at $47,500, which is a reduction to their ask per their volunteering. Weaverville Fire Department would be funded at $50,000, which was their original ask, and that puts us at $191,000, which is the amount that we have to allocate.
Okay.
May I make one comment?
Yes, sir.
The RCD would be willing to drop our ask to 40 to give a little bit more to the watershed center, so they don't have to feel or take on that full responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Weaverville Fire District would be willing to do the same thing, as drop by 10 to allocate it to the HAPE work, because I know they do such great work.
So we can split up the difference between the three big ones, kind of. Are you getting that numbers?
I'm working on that right now.
Now we got some horse trading.
Yeah.
So 67,
Well, at least
500
it-
to the water.
That looks nice.
It's a lot easier when it's horse giving than.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like me to go over those numbers one more time? Okay. Coffee Creek Volunteer Fire Department, $6,300. Downriver Volunteer Fire Department, $12,500. Southern Trinity Volunteer Fire Department, $2,000. Trinity County RCD, $40,000. Trinity County Search and Rescue, $20,000. Trinity Center Volunteer Fire Department, $2,700. The Hayfork Watershed Research and Training Center, $67,500. Weaverville Fire Department, $40,000. And that totals $191,000.
I'll move to accept that as Susie has described.
I will second.
Any further discussion?
Who talked to the Douglas City? I mean, Wildland Gear does kind of go over, I know I'm just kind of screwing things up here, but.
But Susie had the email that said that they were going to drop their entire ask, but
I will
They can draw the straight line.
I will read it for you word for word.
Wildland Gear is pretty straight
pretty
line.
straight.
But it has to be.
But that's right, he said that.
So his email says,
That they don't do much.
please go ahead and remove Douglas City from the list of potential funding with the grant. I agree, we don't do much work with the federal side unless we are sent by OES. Thank you. And that was from the fire chief.
Can I make an offer? So CAL FIRE has their grants coming up through May 4th, and a lot of that would be covered by CAL FIRE, and I will be working with Marty to see if I can help and get funding for all that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and there's any other discussion? All right.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Right, that was actually rather painless.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you, guys.
cooperating
Thank you
and
very much.
seeing that. That's very appreciated.
Thank you very much for your time.
Right. Now, we'll move on to item 5.1. Board of Supervisors discuss and/or provide direction to staff regarding the leasing of the business incubator building located at Trinity County Fairgrounds, unknown fiscal impact.
Richard, you?
Well, this has been on topic for quite a while. We originally were looking at seeing if we could just split that piece of property off and liquidate it, but as it's part of the entire parcel of the fairgrounds, it makes it a little more difficult just to do that. Plus, our planning department is already overburdened with so many other projects.
Yeah, somebody would be really bad if you got this up.
It would not be fair for us to move that to the forefront. So, so the next suggestion was maybe we reach out to the Fair Board, and because the county's really not in the business of leasing or renting commercial property. So it's kind of a over inventory of something that we're not using, and we have no departments that need it. So we discussed maybe reaching out to the Fair Board and seeing if it's something they could utilize, because each year they come back, they ask, we always try and help the Fair Board. We give them about $25,000 a year, but their funding's being cut, so if there's something that they could utilize, and they're more in the position of doing commercial renting, they could charge, and they could either stay with the current tenant, or they could, we could find a new tenant. The current tenant in it right now has been in for a long time. Was part of the incubator system, where it was a start a business, got low to reduced rent, and then once they got up and going, they were supposed to move out. I think they've been in there 7 or 8 years. I'm not sure how long they've been in there now, so they're well exceeded the incubator.
I think the original tenants moved out and are now renting the place.
What's that?
I think the original tenants moved out and are now renting.
Oh, now they're subleasing it, aren't they?
Subleasing it? Really?
Well,
Check the contract,
Well,
check the
okay,
contract.
They would make it very easy to end the contract with them, because that's not in the contract, this is sublease.
And they were delinquent for years, too.
Yeah, so bring it back to the board, so you get some direction, if that's the direction the board would like to go. Supervisor Gogan is volunteered to kind of take the lead on that, and I'd work with them, and we could speak with the Fair Board and see if it's something that might benefit them. We have some other entities in the area that might be a perfect fit for them, so we could also assist them with that too. But again, it's really not the business of the county to lease or rent commercial property. If it's not being utilized, we either liquidate it or use it to assist another, like we do with the food bank and that kind of stuff. We're working with them and providing a building, and works out well for them. So we'll go on the same lines of that.
Can we sell it to CAL FIRE?
You have to split it
That's
first.
the plan. So the plan is CAL FIRE is going to lose out in the Hayfork district. So the plan is to evacuate the present tenants and have the fairgrounds rent it, lease it out to CAL FIRE.
Yeah, CAL FIRE is no longer feasible in the place they're in. And I spoke with the chiefs, and we're going a different direction. They're letting us know that there may not be coverage in the Hayfork area at night after this happened. I said, well, we may have a building for you. So just sometimes the stars align and it works out. So it might be a good venture for everybody.
I think it's good. And we would rent it out to them, to the county for what, $1 a year?
Something like that, yeah, whatever.
So we would be making a deal with the Fair Board,
yes,
giving them control. Then if they leased it out, they take in that money?
And they're responsible for renting it and maintaining it and receive the income from the property.
So we're basically just getting out from underneath it because the county doesn't need to be dealing with rental properties.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I guess I will open public comment on 5.1 and see what the public has to say.
Good morning, Supervisors. If it's the incubator building I'm familiar with, I know about 5-6 years ago, my wife Deidre Brower and my partner at the time, Maureen Peterson, were forming Downriver Consulting, and they rented it for, let's say about 3 or 4 months, helped them get their feet on the ground as a business. And then as they were able to, they rented a more suitable commercial location in Hayfork. But it was helpful for them to get started at that time. And I think the spirit of having something available for startups to attempt commercial activities in Hayfork is awesome. And so somehow continue with that spirit would be great. I think it has been used successfully and appropriately, at least in that instance, and didn't seem to be abused or anything like that. So I think it would be great if there was something like an incubator available, and especially somewhere like Hayfork. But I think there should be some oversight also. And it seems like that's what's missing in all of this is the oversight. The Watershed Center was administering it at that time when my wife rented it, and I'm not sure who's managing it these days, but I know Watershed Center did a pretty good job managing it, and perhaps the Fair Board can also. But, anyway, I think it's a great opportunity, and we should stick with it instead of just putting CAL FIRE in there necessarily. Economic development is sorely missing from this county, and that is something that does encourage economic development. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any Zoom comments?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board.
So historically, the Watershed Center ran it, and then they didn't want to be in the rental business because there was some problems, and so they gave it to us, back to us. So that's I think when things were working fine there, they were okay with it, but they thought they could make a little money, and they didn't. I thought we already given approval at some point to give it to the fairgrounds, or maybe that was just to give direction to.
Yeah, it was, It was to bring back, because we were looking at the lot split too, and if we were able to split it completely off, and so I'll have to go back to the minutes, but I don't feel like I have clear direction to do that, but,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, if I remember right about that meeting, we had talked about it, we had the maps, we all had the maps out, and we came to the conclusion that we would take it back with, not this caveat, but this in there, that the fairgrounds would get rid of the people that are in there now. And so I took that back to Gary, she's like, you're gonna be people in there now, you know, pretty tough customer. They don't want to be the evictor of the tenant. So I brought it back to kind of where it is here now. To have the fairgrounds take it over and put CAL FIRE in, since they won't have any nighttime coverage in April.
Well, I think it's more important that we turn it over for them to decide.
Yeah, let them decide.
And then if the public wants to make a pitch to keep it an incubator or whatever, then the public can make the pitch to the fair board.
I'd be more than happy with the fair board to decide what to do with it.
So while we're giving direction to see if the fair board's even interested, we don't know if they're interested or not?
They're interested in the property, absolutely 100%.
Okay. They just didn't want to be the landlord?
Well, they didn't feel that they should be the evictor.
Well, there ain't nothing for free in this world.
Well, the thing is, they were, I guess, concerned somewhat about the evictees coming back to haunt them. I guess the people that were in there, Richard, you can attest, I guess, how they were tough customers, we'll say.
They're a fun group.
A fun group. So, so the fairgrounds thought that the county should, since it was county property, should evict the current, almost the current tenants of that. So I brought that back to Richard several months ago, and we decided we probably should be. And they have, just so everybody knows, they have multiple people interested in that. It just seemed that CAL FIRE seemed to be the most practical at this time. Not that they're against bringing in other people also. So I would leave it to, they're a great board. I would leave it to the fair board to decide if that's what we want the will of the board to be.
Okay, so direction is we'll negotiate with the fair board to take and develop a lease with them for them to use it in a manner in which they feel is most equitable for them.
And we do the job of getting
That'd be part of the negotiation process.
That's good enough, yeah.
Okay. Any objection to those, that direction?
Does it have to be a separate, or can it just be folded into their
lease?
Into their main lease?
Margaret, take a look at that probably, but I don't know why not. It's all one parcel.
All one parcel.
Yeah, so all you'd really be doing is identifying a building in a new lease. So you would just say they have possession of the entire 52 acres now instead of the 49. Susie's looking.
Yeah, because the terms are a little different in that you're going to allow them to rent this out. I don't know, I would absolutely defer to council, but.
Okay,
So they rent stuff out now.
As I said that out loud, I thought that.
That's
why I stopped and deferred to council entirely.
Okay.
Can you get that redacted?
So we will move on to item 5.2. Receive an update regarding current county issues, fiscal status, and completed task analysis only addressing.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, members of the board. I just felt it was probably an appropriate time as I begin to transition. I liken the position of CEO to, you've heard that notion of the two best days of a boat owner is the day you buy one and the day you sell one. Probably the two best days of hiring a CEO, having a CEO is the day you hire one and the day they leave. So It's one of those positions that 50% of the people are upset with you all the time. The sad part is it's never the same 50%. It's always a moving target. So you do your best to try and keep hitting that bullseye. But when I took this job 4.5 years ago, the county was without a CEO for over 2 years. Our debt was increasing and our revenues were flat. My goal, as I said, was a pretty hefty goal when I first got here, thinking of economic development and things that, this we could do in the community and stuff, but what I realized was what needed to be done first was to get us fiscally strong and fiscally stable. So that's what I've spent most of the time doing is consolidating our debt. We're able to get rid of some debt, reining in some of our spending, and with the amazing staff we have, I believe the county really is in a fiscally strong position now. Now it's in a position, now it's where it should be, so the new administration is starting with a clean slate and is able to really start working on some of the bigger tickets that we need, and that's to increase revenues. Spending is controlled, debt is controlled, but revenues are still flat. So I'm going to go over kind of just a checklist of what we have accomplished for those 50% that are mad at me. We completed our jail. When I started, the jail was about a week from losing that grant. And with the assistance of Director Tippett and his amazing networking abilities, we went down and were able to salvage that funding, and within a very short time, we salvaged the funding, started the project, and completed the project. So it's scheduled to start accepting inmates this year. Cannabis building, we acquired the old bank, and now we have a cannabis building, so we have additional space for both staff and the consumer. Cannabis program now has a division director, which will alleviate a lot of the responsibilities of the planning director, and it took us a little while to realize that we were just eating up our planning directors and really not being able to process other functions of the planning department. So now with the institution of initiation, or whatever the word I'm looking for, the introduction of a cannabis division director, that person should be able to relieve a lot of the pressure of our planning director, who can spend their time now on planning and building. We've secured, sticking with the cannabis theme, secured the 3 consultants to work on the program and the ordinances. They're working very, very well together. It doesn't seem like it's moving as fast as it is, but it is in the background. It's moving very, very well. And as we discussed earlier, some of the questions are, when are we going to start seeing the outflow of license? We really are at the point now where we're having, as they're coming out of technical review, they're being lined up to make sure they're in line with our ordinance. So that's moving quick. We now do, I don't take credit for this one, but we now 100% CEQA, all licenses have to be reviewed and have CEQA compliance. So we were moving towards that, a little slower than we wanted to, but with a little assistance from the courts, we're there now, and I think it'll benefit the industry and the department very well. We have a cannabis tax which was passed a few years ago, and we'll start collecting on that as we get our new license out. This year we'll start recognizing some revenues from the cannabis tax. Retail should be coming shortly. The ordinance is completed and was scheduled this month. If it doesn't go this month, it'll go the first of next month. So we'll have a retail ordinance that will be presented to the Planning Commission for review. We funded and began working on the general plan. I think that's going to be a significant economic driver when that is completed, and as section of it rolled out, because much of the process, which is the problem we're having right now, any type of development, is we have no appropriate land for that development. So with the completion of the general plan, it will identify properties that are able to be developed, and the general plan will support whatever developer wants to put on that piece of property. Right now, it's tough to make ag into high-density commercial property, so the general plan is something that has been long overdue. It's funded, and we have the consultants working on it. We're still running a recruitment for the vacant positions for Director DOT, Planning Director, this position, and eventually HR Director, hoping that both the DOT Director and Planning Director positions will have filled shortly. I haven't got the latest update, but I think we had a couple more for DOT that may qualify. We had quite a few that applied for both, but none of them passed the screening. So I think we have a couple now for DOT that may be potential candidates. As far as infrastructure, we secured the funding for a generator for IT. So we realized that one after we did the debriefing from the car fire and we were out of power. And most of us were using our personal cell phones and emails because the system was down. We couldn't get into our emails, and payroll was difficult to do. So we'll have that up and running in the next couple of months. So in times of emergencies, times of power outages, the county can still function and still have our IT servers running. We're, with the board's assistance and negotiations with labor unions, we have titrating down our in lieu of, which when I first came on board, Susie didn't like it, but when I first came on board, those who didn't take county insurance were getting over $700 a month in lieu of. It was right about 700, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for taking that.
Yeah, not a popular decision, but fiscally it's going to save the county millions by the time we're down, because it's essentially about $1 million a year that we're paying in lieu of. So it'll save the county close to $1 million a year once we titrate down to the minimum. Full medical for retirees, new retirees, not old retirees. And I don't mean old in age, I mean old that they've been, they're already grandfathered in. For those who are hired after 18 or 20? 20.
That one, there's not a set date because it's upon ratification of that bargaining unit MOU.
Okay.
So they all have a slightly different date, but it was, I believe it was in 2020.
So anyhow, it's recent hires are no longer eligible for full medical. Right now the county pays $1,071 or something like that.
1,057.
1,057. It has 7 in there. 1,057 a month for retirees. That's going to drop it down to what, 130? Minimum is 130 or 140.
I think it's 149 right now, but it's whatever the statutory minimum is.
So again, times how many retirees we have over the next, as the current retirees move on to a better place and the new retirees start coming on, there's significant savings for the county in that. So these are things that we're going to recognize 10, 12, 15 years down the road. Paying 100% into OPEB. People always ask what's OPEB. It's other post-employment benefits. Now that we're meeting our 100% obligation, that reduced our liability from around 60 million to 40 million. So reduced about 20 million off of that. And again, with the reduction in our pay to retirees, eventually that bell curve's going to flatten out and we're going to catch up. So there is hope in the future that unfunded liability will be funded and it'll be paid for. You look at some counties, I know when I left Shasta County, they had over $400 million in unfunded. I don't know where they are now, but some of these places, a lot of the counties and cities thought that maybe the state would step in and bail them out, and they've accumulated 400 or 500, some of them $1 billion of unfunded liabilities, and that's a little scary because it is a liability, even though we're not paying the whole thing up front. It is a liability that you pay over a lifetime of it. So we're on a track to have ours funded. Fee study is still, I keep saying it's still in the works. As Diane's still here, she must really enjoy board meetings. But as she has to get her portion, and so we're waiting on some of the other departments to get their portions to Craig so he can do the calculations and then present that to the board, which will then give the board an opportunity to kind of review where our fees are and what's palatable to increase or some not increase, but that's one of those possible increase in revenues. We're on track to have our debt paid. I say 25. Susie said 24-ish. I say 25. Some of the debt that we accumulated during the hospital years, that kind of stuff. So So we're end up paying that off a year early, and we saved around $75,000 a year while paying that off.
To be clear though, that's not the $4 million we owe ourselves, right?
We're just gonna, yeah, we just pretend that doesn't exist.
We do not pretend that doesn't exist.
We-
Correct,
yeah.
that is not the 4 million that we owe back to ourselves.
8 million, 8.5 million we for payroll and everything else that we borrowed.
So
It's also not the PUD, because those are separate loans.
But those, the PUD only has, what, 1.5 more years left, 2 more years?
PUD I do anticipate will be paid off at the end, by the end of next fiscal year.
I have reached out to the hospital saying, since you're so rich, you could come pay some of your old debt off, so.
So, and finally, because we paid that, we refinanced and paid that debt off. We, for the first time, I think from 2010 or 12, we can start building a reserve again. That was one of the scariest things when I first got here, looking at $120 to $140 million budget with no reserve. We should really have about a $2 million reserve for those rainy days, for emergencies, and for capital improvement projects and redevelopment type of projects. Those, you can set some of those aside. You could also use some of it to assist with roads. I mean, it's one of those that if you budget a year ahead of time, you can use those funds. So we have, in the last go around, part of the resolution was to put what percentage of our contingency? That was like 25%, or I have to remember. But part of our contingency, whatever we save in contingency, percentage of that will go into building a reserve. So I would, and I think we set it to accumulate up to around $2 million. So fiscally, the county's in pretty good shape. Whoever takes over next is not going to have to go backwards. They get to deal with the problems of today and the ones they create for tomorrow. They're not going to have to go back and try and reinvent the wheel. We still have, you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We still have 20% staffing. We're down. Still struggling very hard to get those technical positions, bachelor type positions into the area. So it makes it a little difficult to take on new projects. One of the things that's a little frustrating, and I've spoken with each of our department heads, that we want to chase grants, but sometimes grants become more of a burden than a blessing, because if it's not a big enough grant to hire, then you're spreading the misery out even more to the employees you already have. And then if we do have to hire, most grants are 2 to 3 years. Again, we have that hiring issue where we can't find people to come in. So I work with, I talk with each of the department heads, and to make sure that if you're applying for a grant, it's something that's going to benefit you in a way where it doesn't just prevent you from doing other services, because the funding is usually cylinder funded. You have to work on whatever that grant wants you to do, and then it ends up pulling away from our fee for service and our general fund services, because we're having to do report and process whatever that grant's required to do. So and this is kind of my personal background feeling, is though we're in a good financial position, when we do start increasing revenues, much of our revenues will have to go into our function services. As a county, we are, I'll use a reference, like we're the offensive linemen of municipalities. We don't do the fun stuff. We are law enforcement. We're mental health. We're social services. We're roads. We're probation. We're elections. We're tax collectors. We're the ones that do the heavy lifting of the everyday work. We don't get to build the skyscrapers. We don't get to build the theme parks. Those are usually the cities. If you look around most of the areas, Humboldt, Shasta, whatever, it's the cities that get a lot of that funding, and they have redevelopment departments, and they have economic development departments, and they have funding just for those type of things. So we're required first to those safety net, getting the jail, those type of stuff. So I kind of caution as money starts to come in, we then need to kind of backfill those services that we're supposed to and required to fund and maintain further. Now, if we have a community that has a strong law enforcement, a great mental health system that's dealing with the, and our social services is dealing with the underserved, we're keeping track of those on probation, and we have good roads, developers look at that too. Most people, when they look at an area to develop or to move to, the first thing they look at is crime rate. What's the crime rate? What's the, what are the problems of that area? We have a lot of blessings here. We have cheap power, lots of water, beautiful land, good climate. So we have some of the things that really attract, but we need to make this area with the general plan and with our core services, make it into an area that now brings those people, not only weekenders, but we want people to move. For a long time, I'm going to say we. I've been in Trinity County for a long time. I'm going to still say we for a long time. So I hope that's not offensive, but I still say we need to look at those long-term investors coming in. And I think through building up our core services, that will also help some economic development, because they'll see that we have all the core services that people don't want to deal with. They don't want to have to deal with crime. They don't have to deal with the homeless. So if we can fund those departments and those services, I think that alone really helps develop economic development. So honestly, some of the things that I think will help when you go to recruit is one, we complete the strategic plan. Because within that strategic plan, you're going to have 3 to 5 emphases of where the county wants to go, and it'll really help, I believe, in the recruitment process, because you can ask the individual, not can you do something, because everyone's going to say yes. I said yes to everything you asked of me when I was being interviewed. You can say have you, because this is part of our strategic plan. This is what we want. Have you done that? And then hopefully the person has an example of what they've done, how they've done it, and how long it took. The other thing I would encourage the board to do would revisit priorities. When I took over, my priority was cannabis at all costs, and it still is. So right now, cannabis is 1, 2, and 3. So when we are prioritizing something or something comes along, we look at it on how it's going to affect our ability to provide cannabis services. So it is and has been, but with the institution of our new, with the new consultants, we have amazing consultants on board, we have a new director, we have a motivated staff. We know the plan with secret compliance. Cannabis, as far as a plan, I think is in the best place it's ever been. Now we still need to execute it. And again, as we've talked about, it's a river of use. I like that. It's every time we open up the gates, it stops. We hit another dam. But each time we open up a gate, at least we're removing one of the dams. So I would really strongly encourage the board to have open discussion, because we do have 3 new members on this board. Is cannabis number 1, 2, and 3? Or is there room for a 2 or a room for a 3 now? And what is that priority? Because when the administration is going to give direction to staff, that's kind of the checklist they're going to have to go through, is what is our priority? And if there is a number 2 and 3 on the list, then it's going to make it easier for that person to shift resources. Right now, you've seen it. The only resources we shift are to cannabis. We've never shifted any resources out of cannabis. And cannabis is an economic driver and is something that I strongly believe will be an industry that will create work outside of the cannabis industry. There'll be subsidiary businesses that will, and we already have some, but we'll have more once the cannabis industry is running smooth. And I've been delusional since I get here that it will run smooth someday. So that's just kind of an overview. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but I just wanted to give a view of where we are. Kind of the theme of it is I think the county is in fiscally a really good place for the next administration to come in and now start on stable ground, take the direction of the board, run with the direction of the board, and not have to go backwards and try and fill leaks while you're trying to move forward. I think you're at a point where with the right person, the right administration, I know you have the right staff. You just need more of them, but I'm anxious to see where the county can go, because I think it's positioned very well. That'll be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions?
I have one question about the cannabis thing you talked about, and obviously we don't want to slow it down any, and it is 1, 2, and 3 on our calendar all the time, which it shouldn't be. We need to be 1, 2, and 3 should be something else. So with the hiring of the new cannabis director, right now we have him, we have the people who work for him, we have Lako and Helix, and then we have Sean from Margaret's office. Sorry.
We have Sean 1 and Sean 2.
Yeah, we have 2 Seans, right here, Sean Paul and Sean.
Or Sean
So
2.0 or.
It's young and old.
Oh.
I'm gonna go with old.
Well, they're old as original.
Oh, okay.
New Sean and old Sean.
New Sean didn't like being number 2 Sean.
Yeah.
So what is his role? Has it been taken away? Is it smaller? What do we pay him? And will it diminish as young Sean, new Sean, starts coming into his own stardom here as the planning director for cannabis?
My understanding, the new Sean will start assuming those roles, because what Sean from Margaret's firm does is send out the letters and the communication was kind of, at the time, was a firewall for Lisa and for David, so they could get things going. Director Sean will not need that firewall anymore, because he should be in direct contact with all the cultivators and applicants. So I do see that over the next 6 months starting to diminish, and Director Sean will be in charge of that, because he'll be the one signing license. So he should be the one sending out the either the deficiency or the congratulation letters.
Yeah, to answer your question, within 6 months, I would anticipate old Sean being out.
And if our new Sean keeps going through, he's going, I would anticipate it being even less than that, because
Yeah.
he's seems to be gung-ho. Yeah, he's gung-ho. He wants to get things done.
I wasn't just sure how that all went.
Yeah,
And if
he really wants to get a full handle on it and pull everything back in-house. So been very pleased with interaction. I mean, it's government. Sometimes you have to say slow down, but we haven't said that yet, because we'd like to see him do as much as he can.
All right, I have a question for council really quick. Since this is under county matters, do I open this to public comment? We're not taking any action on this.
I'm a little sleep.
No, this was an agendized item, so yes, you would open up to public comment. If he was just giving it under department head reports or a presentation, no, but
Yeah.
because we did agendize it, I'd open it up.
All right, so do we have any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. That's good.
Can I ask
Close
it?
public comment and bring it back to the board then.
Can I ask a timing question? So I have to be told things about 30 times before they sink in and start thickhead, but so what day is your last day, and then there's like a wind down month, is that correct?
Yeah, last day is May 31st, and then we have a closed session today that I can discuss the
transition
in the month of May.
Okay.
And I gather we have an interim kind of waiting in the wings.
That's what we'll discuss in close.
Does everybody on the board know what that is, do you think?
That's what we'll discuss in close.
I didn't hear what you said, Jackie. At the end, not me.
All right, so Any further questions?
Nope.
I do have a question for you, kind of aside though. What's your schedule like for the rest of the week?
How bad do you need me?
Well, I was just wondering if there's a time when I could meet with you in person.
Be around tomorrow. You got be around tomorrow, or?
I can make that work.
Okay.
And just give me a time where I can eat up an hour or so of your time.
It's gonna be early because I have a deposition all afternoon, I think.
Well, how early is early?
Yeah, remember,
He likes
talking to
6 a.m.
Dan and not me. Very different definitions.
Dan's early is still to last night. I'm concerned.
Before 10.
Thank you, Diane.
We can do before 10. I can do 11, it looks like.
All right, well, how about
10:30?
Well, what's before 10? Just,
Anytime.
all right, how about 9 o'clock?
I'll be here 6 o'clock, but.
All right, oh, how about I meet you at 9 o'clock?
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
At his place.
At your place.
Now how does it work?
All right. All right, and with that, unless anybody has any other questions, I think we're done with that item. And I'll read off the closed session items. Closed session item 6.1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, number of cases 1. And item 6.2, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, number of cases 1. Trinity Action Association, Inc. versus Trinity County et al. Trinity County Superior Court case number 19 CV001. And item 6.3, Government Code Section 54954.5E, Public Employee Appointment, County Administrative Officer. Do we have any public comment on these closed session items?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the Trinity Action Association versus Trinity County item. Once again, I would encourage the board to pay these legal fees out of the general fund, as the cannabis program participants, through no fault of their own, found themselves in this position. County's had many years to get with it on CEQA, and we do have what I feel that I agree with Supervisor Groves and Dr. Coons, that we do have a program that on paper sure looks like it should satisfy all the requirements, but it is a matter of implementing it, and today we have 0 licensees that have made it through this Appendix C process. I think the paying of these legal fees should be from the general fund. The county generally benefits hugely from this program via cannabis code enforcement, but also law enforcement generally. And the code enforcement, the cannabis licensing fees that support code enforcement generate between $1 and $2 million a year in code enforcement fines most years that go right into the general fund, and that benefits the county generally, as does the cannabis tax, as do the Prop 64 grants that are available. And saddling the cannabis license fee payers with this legal cost, I think is something you guys can avoid and do the right thing for everybody in Trinity County. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do you have any other public comments?
For the record, I'll be recusing from 6.2.
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay, well with that, we will adjourn to the closed session. All right, so please make sure you turn off the mic at the lobby.
Have you read this yet?
I have not.
All right, so I want to, but I'd like everybody to read it, but they probably won't understand most of it on the board. It's a letter to TMC, or excuse me, to Bureau of Reclamation.
My arm,
And it is stating the reasons and the things I would like to have changed. Well, in December, I wrote down the variable, winter variable slopes.
See, welcome to the world.
Headphones, can we talk about this, Dean?
No.
Important to us in here.
Yeah.
So send us an email.
So I'll read it in the next day or two and give you a comment. So what's the time crunch on this?
I'd like to get done this week.
Okay, I'll get back to you this week, and
All right.
then you can agendize it for Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, you can't share with more than him. You have to go through her. Now, do you know what WFB is?
Maybe at 2 o'clock.
Oh, sorry. Why'd you ask? Although she's amazing.
No,
Yeah.
The worst people you can be with. Like everybody else.
Are we all ready for our closed session to start? We haven't had our little permission slip go around yet.
Is it a mic?
Yeah.
I put it over there with you.
Here it
It comes
is.
over here.
So who hit your name tag?
Planning ticket.
Planning stole it. I seen it
They
coming.
wanted to keep me for their own. Get rid of me, either way. I don't know which one. Okay, here you go.
So I go to the store and there's a note on the wall saying the dump's going to be closed until 11 o'clock today. If you have a complaint, write it out, wad it up, and put it in the garbage, and I'll get it later.
That's funny.
That's not the best customer service.
I know, but it's
It is
funny.
kind of
And then B, I'm not sure.
Okay,
See, Derek?
I see Derek's face.
The other one is Jake and that group saying that we're.
Or Max.
we maybe need
Locks.
They
You know that shyster lawyer in Reading? Yeah, so he called me one time.
You know exactly what you're talking about. That Public guy, yeah.
You want to do it that way? That way you can-
Oh, this is Mox on. Is one of my employees. It's one of my employee there. And there's like this long pause for me. Oh, we're not suing you, Mike.
Well, there's.
That's over something.
And you're like, thank you for that, I love to get it.
So it's kind of GR.
GR. Yeah, it's gotta be one color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From head and shell.